by a significant margin. But he should wait to announce. Back after this. Many timeshare owners are very upset because their yearly dues have nearly doubled. Well, Lone Star will guarantee the release of all liability to your timeshare in writing and in a specific time frame. With their A-plus rating at the Better Business Bureau, clients know that Lone Star Transfer is a company you can trust. For a free consultation, please go to LoneStarTransfer.com or call 855-551-7066. That is the Morning O'Reilly Update. More analysis later on.
You want to look good and feel good in your ride this summer, so I brought in Gus from Gap's Automotive Repair Shop. Gus, what are some
Former President Trump under criminal investigation? I'm Dave Anthony, Fox News, The Washington Post, and others report the Justice Department's probing his conduct around the Capitol riot and Trump attempts to overturn the election, which he still claims was stolen from him.
And you know what? That's going to be a story for a long time. What a disgrace it was.
The former president told that to a conservative group in his first trip back to Washington since leaving office.
Never forget, everything this corrupt establishment is doing to me is all about preserving their power and control over the American people.
Now to the investigation in President Biden's son Hunter's business dealings. Republicans claim whistleblowers have come forward saying the FBI is trying to undermine the case.
Ranking Senate Judiciary Committee member Chuck Grassley, who wrote to Attorney General Merrick Garland and FBI Director Christopher Wray about the whistleblower complaints, saying, quote, the allegations provided to his office appear to indicate that there was a scheme in place among certain FBI officials to undermine derogatory information connected to Hunter Biden by falsely suggesting it was disinformation.
Fox's Brooke Singman. The Federal Reserve could take action again today that'll cost us more getting loans or paying credit card debt.
The central bank is likely to raise its benchmark interest rate by 0.75 of a percentage point as they did in June, or they could perhaps hike rates by a larger full percentage point in an effort to tackle hot inflation running at a 4-decade high.
That's Fox's Hillary Barsky. A lot of Americans were watching and hoping last night.
Our first winning number tonight is 29. That's followed by 63. Up next, we have 66. Your next number is 7, and your final wipe ball number for this Tuesday evening is 60. Now for the Mega Ball number, that's 15.
Well, we were all disappointed. None of us had all those numbers. So Mega Millions turns into Mega Billion. The jackpot now slightly over $1 billion for Friday, the 4th largest U.S. lottery prize ever. America's listening to Fox News.
If you're living with aches and pains, especially if they're frequent and nagging and relentless, I want you to take a moment and think back to the last time you really felt good. Can you even remember what it felt like? Now, here's even a more important question. What would you give to go back to feeling like that again? Maybe it would just be nice to take a stroll with your loved one or play with your grandchildren. I've suffered from persistent, crippling pain almost all the time for about 5 years. When I started taking Relief Factor, I took it because my wife made me start taking it. I didn't think it would work for me. Yet here I am today, virtually pain-free, doing the things I love to do, all thanks to my wonderful wife and Relief Factor. I love that it's not a drug, but it was developed by doctors, and about 70% of the people who try it go on to order more. Are you part of that 70% that can get your life back? Your first step to becoming pain-free just might be to order the 3-week quick start for only $19.95. Go to ReliefFactor.com or call 800-4RELIEF. Find out more about this offer. Feel the difference. ReliefFactor.com.
93.9 The Eagle News Time with Robinson's Cleaners. It is 6:03 and Robinson saves you time. We do have some light rain falling right now here in mid-Missouri in Columbia. It's 70 degrees right now at Sanborn Field. We've already had a half of an inch of rain. And again, just like yesterday, the bulk of this rain seems to be falling to the north of I-70 and then right in Columbia. The further south you are, the less rain you will be receiving today, just like yesterday as well. We'll have more on that in a moment. Good morning, everyone. Here are some of the stories we're working on for you in this 6 o'clock hour. Missouri's record rainfall and the historic flooding prompting the acting governor, Mike Kehoe, to declare a state of emergency. He has signed an executive order declaring that state of emergency across Missouri. He's acting governor because Governor Parson is in Germany and the Netherlands today on a previously scheduled trade mission. The acting governor says state agencies are ready to assist Missourians in flood-impacted areas. More than 9 inches of rain fell in St. Louis, 8 inches falling in a 6-hour time frame. The National Weather Service in St. Louis says that is the highest 24-hour rainfall amount on record. It topped the 1915 Galveston, Texas hurricane. Congresswoman Cori Bush is asking President Biden to issue a federal disaster declaration. There is a lot of damage. Many people lost some homes. Railroad tracks damaged as well, and then many other people lost their cars. And again, the cleanup is continuing this morning, primarily eastern Missouri. O'Fallon, St. Peter's getting about 12 inches of rain between the two of them separately. Columbia Regional Airport's $23 million new terminal should be finished by September. It's expected to open shortly after that. COU provided free guided tours of the new terminal Tuesday. Airport manager Mike Parks is proud of the new facility. He says it is accessible for everyone.
So this is an airport everyone in mid-Missouri can use, but it's also roomy. So when you walk in, you don't feel so tight with others, and so we expect a lot of people to be flying out of Columbia and into Columbia. However, you still have a lot of room to move around, and you'll be comfortable while you're here.
New terminal will also include a storm shelter and a mother's room as well. The new terminal's main funding source was a hotel tax approved by Columbia voters back in 2016. A veteran mid-Missouri lawmaker who chairs the House Veterans Committee in Jefferson City says Missouri leads the nation in veteran suicides. Jefferson City State Representative Dave Griffith chairs the House Interim Committee on Veterans, Mental Health, and Suicide. They'll hold a hearing on the issue at 11 o'clock this morning.
I'd like for Missouri to be first in almost everything. This is one number I wish we were last.
Chairman Griffith tells 93.9 The Eagle that the Missouri Veterans Commission will be testifying today. There will be no public testimony at the hearing, but public testimony will be taken at a later hearing that is open to the public today in Jefferson City from 11 until 2. And Chairman Griffith emphasizes this is a very bipartisan issue. It's also personal for him, as he has known several people, veterans and non-veterans, who have committed suicide. A Columbia woman is jailed this morning in Callaway County after a daytime home invasion in Fulton.
During the noon hour yesterday, Fulton police were called out to a home invasion that was happening on Kenwood Drive. They got a vehicle description, pulled the vehicle over, and found 19-year-old Skeasia Rowland and 4 juveniles. Investigators say they found a loaded gun in the car, along with some airsoft guns, marijuana, and items believed taken from the home. John Marsh, Zimmer News Network.
And a large employer in Callaway County wants to hire at least 20 new production technicians. They're holding a career fair at their Fulton plant today. It's Harbison Walker. They're doing job screenings and on-site interviews from 7 in the morning until 6 today. They say they provide market-leading wages. Major plant. It's a big plant there in Fulton. If you want to go, bring your resume, and you can show up anytime between 7 and 6 today. The plant on West St. Eunice Road in Fulton, Mo. Our news is brought to you this morning by the folks at Air Serv Heating and Air Conditioning. Air Serv Heating and Air Conditioning for all of your cooling needs. Log on to airserv.com. 93.9 The Eagle News Time, 6:07. In sports, Toronto whipping the St. Louis Cardinals 10-3 yesterday in the evening in St. Louis in Canada, as the Blue Jays had 14 hits in the game. Just from the very beginning, the Cardinals just could not get much going offensively, defensively. Blue Jays looked very impressive. They certainly appear to be a playoff team. Happen to play in the same division with the Yankees, but that's what we have the wild card for, a couple wild card spots. This team looks very dangerous, and we play the Toronto Blue Jays again tonight. St. Louis does. We'll have it for you right here on The Eagle. You're home for Cardinal Baseball, 93.9 The Eagle. First pitch is at 6:07 this evening. Angels shutting out the Royals last night at the K. The final there was 6-0. They play again tonight at Kauffman Stadium in Kansas City. They were able to get the game in despite some rain. Rain is in the forecast again tonight for us and for Kansas City. Hopefully they'll be able to get that game in tonight, but there is a possibility of thunderstorms over at the K. So if you're going there, you'll definitely want to have an umbrella handy for sure. 93.9 The Eagle News Time, 6:08. All right, John, thank you. Right now, our weather is brought to you by McDonald's. McDonald's, you can enjoy world-famous fries at McDonald's because it helps the Ronald McDonald House of Mid-Missouri. McDonald's restaurants, they donate 1 penny to the local house for every pound sold. Right now, rain falling in Columbia at 70. Traffic check, midmohires.com. Local companies are looking for local people. Midmohires.com. Find a job. Post your job opening today. Our roads are pretty quiet here in mid-Missouri. If you want to report a traffic issue, 573-874-9390. Talk to Hannah, our producer, and there was not work going on overnight on the Jefferson City, Missouri River Bridge. No surprise there with the rain, and they may have to delay that even again tonight because rain is in the forecast. But it is scheduled to take place starting tonight at 7 o'clock. I'm Brian Houseworth, 93.9 The Eagle.
This Eric puts rifles in his ads, and Eric Schmidt plays with a blowtorch. So I brought my chainsaw. Just kidding.
That is Senate candidate Vicky Hartzler hitting back in that U.S. Senate race that now we were just about a week away. This is Stephanie Bell sitting in for Brandon Rathert. I'm joined by Columbia Attorney Jennifer Bukowski.
Am I sitting in for you then, Stephanie?
Okay,
I'm
sure.
the new Stephanie. You're Brandon.
All right, and we also have Brian Houseworth and Hannah, the producer, with us this morning.
Good morning.
Did you check that ad out yesterday,
Yeah,
Jen?
I actually filled in for Randy, and we played it last night. That's one of my favorite ads from this election. We're less than a week away from, because she's kind of taking a shot at the boys with their toys, you know. Grides has a gun in every ad. We've seen Schmidt with ads with his baseball bat hitting the ball really far, and then with a blowtorch. And so it was kind of lighthearted and funny. And it's also interesting to me that now Schmidt and Hartzler are attacking each other, which indicates their campaigns think that Grimes is falling out of the race, and it's one of these two that are going to win on Tuesday. So
I think you're exactly right. And actually, I think there were 2 new polls out yesterday, and we'll get into those a little bit later, that really do show the 2 of them are really within the margin of error, neck and neck, and Greitens is kind of on the decline. So I think that's a really important insight. The more they attack each other, the more they feel like the other person is the one to beat. I mean, what do you think? Where do you see that race shaking out?
yeah, you can't trust polls too much, but I think they are showing those two pulling ahead in this field, this very crowded field. It actually has 3 Erics in it. You know, I looked at my sample ballot. I'm like, people had better be paying attention if they want to vote for one of the Erics to their last name. But I think that indicates that those two are the front 2 horses, that one of them might win by a nose here on Tuesday. And I guess we're less than a week away from finding out.
Well, and I guess we'll finally answer the question, is a prop necessary in your campaign ad? And I really
does the size of the prop mean anything?
Yeah, what kind of prop, if you were running, what'd you do?
That's what I was going to ask you. I mean, as lawyers, I feel like a lot of lawyers default to maybe
the gavel.
Yeah, or something like that. But yeah, I don't know. And I think Vicky Hartzler pointing out, here's a chainsaw. It does kind of point out men versus women, because I think it's easy for men to pick up a blowtorch or something else. But yeah, I mean,
hey, I'm a girl that likes guns
you
too.
You do.
So
it's true.
Maybe I would. What kind of gun? Handgun, or should I go with a AR-15?
The bigger, the better.
The leftist tears would start flowing if I had an ad with me shooting an AR-15, wouldn't they?
I love it. So we will answer that question next Tuesday on which prop put someone over the edge. But that was really, Hartzler's thing. She said, she said, just kidding. I don't need a chainsaw. Senate candidates don't need props. They need guts.
And it's clever because she's actually using a prop.
That's true.
By making fun of props.
Yeah. Well, and did you see Mark Alford, which is the TV guy from Kansas City in the fourth? He had a megaphone, and he's been on TV for so long. He said, I'm putting down the microphone, and I'm grabbing the megaphone. So even, down ballot folks are kind of getting that prop vibe and wanting to use props and kind of be known as somebody with the guy, because Mark McCloskey is the guy with the pink shirt and the gun, right? And he's kind of running on that.
Yeah.
So everyone kind of has their own prop. But we'll get back into the Senate polling later in the show. Brian, there was some important things going on here in Missouri, some major flooding, first of all.
Yes.
And then you went to the terminal, the new terminal. You got a behind-the-scenes look yesterday.
Yeah, I'll tell you, as far as the weather, Stephanie and Jennifer, and it's good to see Jennifer here in studio too, and I appreciate both of you. It was just unprecedented. We've been dealing with record drought. We've talked about that. The governor issued an executive order, record drought. I always check in with the Weather Service. We had only received 1.14 inches of rain as before, just yesterday here in Columbia, we were 2 inches below normal in June, 2 inches below yesterday. And the Weather Service, when I left on, would have been Monday, they said there's a chance of some flash flooding, maybe up to 2 inches across the state. And of course, no one can predict this. They said basically it was a 1 in 1,000 chance of something like this happening. And 12 inches of rain in St. Peter's, 10 inches in O'Fallon. Wow. Record flooding. I talked to my dad, who's a building inspector in Hazelwood, and they were having to use boats to rescue people out of apartments. Highways shut down, so lots and lots of damage. And there is a chance of a presidential disaster declaration. It probably will rise to that level, although still have to calculate some stuff.
Well, and a lot of rain here overnight. Is that rain headed over there for folks in mid-Missouri who might be traveling to St. Louis? Should they expect, impacts or anything this morning or today?
I think today's going to be okay. I would just say be cautious at this point. It is raining right now. Centralia officially had 4 inches of rain and then 3.9. I've got the numbers in the newsroom. 3.9 officially in Hallsville. We've gotten some text saying a little bit more than that, but that is officially what the Weather Service through their person that is basically their spotter has. But that tells you something, and that's still a lot. Normally that would be a lot, but when you start talking about 8-9 inches within 6 hours, I mean, that's more than an inch an hour. Obviously, the ground just could not keep up with that. So I think today will be okay for people traveling. And then as far as the COU tour, I took that yesterday, and it was packed. People were really excited. Got a video, and I've got it up on my Twitter page, at Brian on the Air. I actually took a tweet and videoed it of the passenger boarding bridges, and they are so neat. They're very interesting. People want to look at that. I've got that on Twitter, and we learned for the first time, that's not been reported until I got there yesterday, that new airport terminal, Stephanie, will have a storm shelter.
Oh, nice.
For tornadoes, and you as you know, you travel a lot. Good Friday tornado 2011, direct hit on Lambert Field in St. Louis, blew out all the windows. It was terrible. And lots of damage, millions and millions. So they're going to have a storm shelter, and they're looking at opening the terminal in September, but we don't have a date yet. And they're very close on the restaurant, too.
And so these jet bridges,
Yeah.
I'm excited about that because, but we kind of lose a little bit of the nostalgia. It's kind of nice to walk out onto the tarmac when you're in Columbia. It's kind of like one of the Columbia things. But it is, for weather, I have, when I'm deplaning and you're walking down that ramp and it's icy and they're like, hang on, and you're in, dress shoes. I think as far as safety and weather, it's probably, and it will be an upgrade. And I think it says something to when people fly in, that you're a real airport if you actually exit on a jet bridge.
Yeah, right. Like I'm current president of the Federalist Society. You're prior president of locally. And when we bring in speakers, they're like, where am I? Because they've never had to walk off the stairs of a plane before.
That's right.
And it makes it think they're in a third world country or something's like amiss, and it kind of is off-putting, and it's not really the best welcome to our fine community. So this will put us, I think, like catch us up to the respect that we deserve.
And the only other point I'd make to what you just said, Jen, is I actually talked about this yesterday with Mike Parks, and right off the top, and I don't know, probably I've heard Lyndon Johnson came through here, although I've never been able to confirm that, and he may have been here as vice president too, or president, or both. But for sure, President Richard Nixon, President Gerald Ford, President Jimmy Carter, Reagan, Bush, Clinton in order, and then Bush for sure, and then candidate Obama, and then President Trump. All of them came through that airport, and all of them had to get off the tarmac and walk out into the elements. Bob Hope, there's a picture of him. I've got a picture of him in the newsroom, Bob Hope getting off in the heat. And again, sometimes that's great for a president to get out there and be seen, but there are times when could be maybe a safety issue, or if it's really cold or hot. I do remember when President Trump got off that plane, it was freezing, and he didn't have a coat on. I mean, it was miserable in that, although it was packed, I will say that. So this is going to be unprecedented, and those bridges almost didn't make it. They got stuck at the roundabout.
I remember that, and a lot of our listeners who were backed up on 63 that morning remember that as well. Well, and I think what people are most excited about the new terminal is really, will it open up the possibility for more flights? And so you all know I missed the 4th of July parade because I got stuck in Chicago. I flew this weekend, and actually it wasn't the Columbia flight to Chicago that got canceled. It was the second leg of the flight. So I ended up driving to St. Louis. I ended up in 4 airports on Sunday. It sounds like a lot of folks over the weekend also had struggles. I did end up getting to my destination quite later than I had anticipated, but one positive of that was I ended up connecting through Charlotte. And that's one of the flights that Columbia is talking about getting. And man, that airport was really nice. I really enjoyed being there. For the third airport in the day, but it was a pleasant experience. It was bustling. You could tell, there's once you get to Charlotte, you can get almost anywhere. Yes. And I thought if we can have a direct flight here, gosh, it would be nice. What was the talk yesterday? Was there any rumblings of that or bringing back Denver? Or?
No real talk about that from the public. I was there for a lot of the public questions. I have talked to Stacey Button about it, not yesterday, so no one brought that up. But, I reported about a week and a half ago at the Ready meeting, and I was surprised I was the only reporter there, but no other media picked it up. But Stacey Button announced and then confirmed to me, and with the story, I have audio with her, we aired it, that they are in talks with 3 different airlines right now, 3 different airlines that are not currently serving Columbia Regional, and she couldn't say obviously who they are. Obviously, Charlotte for sure we know is a top priority for Mike Parks. He has said so. But until they can get another airline, or unless American decides to go down there, that's a little bit off into the future. But I know they want to get their restaurant taken care of first, but that's certainly up on the list.
Well, thanks, Brian. We have a big show planned today. I do want to give a shout out and thanks to Randy Tobler, who's here at 4 p.m. for hosting Wake Up on Monday. Also, thanks to Chris and Becky Arps. Check out a picture of them on our Facebook page. They hosted yesterday. But we are going to get to your daily DC rundown next. The House is poised to place blame for some of those recent shootings. You're listening to 93.9 The Eagle.
Hi, I'm Brendan Rathert for Salter Lawn Service. Salter, one call does it all. Yeah, one call does it all, including concrete work. Recently was hanging out in Ashland. They did some work at a daycare, lovely daycare in Ashland, and Salter called and said, hey, you need to come see us do some concrete work because, this concrete stuff for Salter Lawn Service, it's not just kind of a side thing. Like, We've got some laser focus on this. So I went out there and I hung out with the guys and I watched them take like nothing and I watched them turn it into like this really nice smooth driveway, and they fixed up the back play area for the kids. And now Man, the kids are loving it, and the folks that pull up have this nice concrete driveway that the folks at Salter Lawn Service did. That's why we say Salter, one call does it all. That includes concrete work. Check them out. Salter Lawn Service. Salter, one call does it all.
The CEOs of Smith & Wesson, Sturm Ruger, and Daniel Defense are all expected to appear before the House Oversight Committee in Washington today. Congresswoman Carolyn Maloney, who chairs the committee, wants gun makers to answer as to why their products, such as AR-15 style semi-automatic rifles, are so easily available, referring to them as weapons of war.
This is Stephanie Bell sitting in for Brandon Rathert with Jennifer Bukowski. And I think, Jen, earlier you said you were a gun gal. We are getting into our daily DC rundown. The House Oversight Committee is meeting today, and they're calling the gun manufacturers to the table. What do you think about that?
I think it's all politics. They just want people to not pay attention to the inflation, to the gas prices, to the state of shambles that the spending has led our economy to. And so they're trying to pivot to anything that they can attack Republicans on ahead of these midterm elections. And here it's guns and abortion. That's what they're going for.
I think you're exactly right. And they passed this, bipartisan gun bill, and it, provided money for mental health and everything else. So, I'm kind of with you. Why bring them in now and start trying to point the finger at gun manufacturers when they got the legislation that they're going to get for this cycle? And so I think you're exactly right. It's all politics. And we were talking about this. So last Friday, Trump and Pence were in Arizona together, both stumping for separate candidates in the gubernatorial race. Yesterday, they were both in D.C., and it really is a showdown. I think Mike Pence actually I've seen them in the same place before. And honestly, from a speech perspective, Trump blows Pence out. I mean, he makes him look boring, right? Trump.
Oh, definitely. I was listening to Pod Save America, and they had their people listening to both speeches.
Okay.
They couldn't find an interesting clip to play of the Pence speech. They're like, everything was boring. So they can't even find a clip to attack Pence with on the left. If you're going to go to a Pence rally or a Trump rally, which one's going to be a more raucous good time? It's going to be the Trump rally.
That's for sure. I didn't hear the speech itself, but I saw some of the quotes. And I think Pence's messaging is good, but he's going to have to get fired up. One of the things he's trying to distinguish himself is saying, look, we agree on the issues. Trump and I agree on the issues. The real difference is where my focus is. And Trump's focus, is on the past, is what he's implying. And my focus is, on the future, how we fix inflation, how we fix gas prices, all of these things. And so I think that message is right, because if Trump's speech was largely focused on the past.
Look, both these guys lost to Joe Biden, though. They both can be attacked on that by DeSantis.
No, fair point. And we've talked about age. Do you think? Mike Pence isn't a spring chicken. He's not Ron DeSantis. Do you think
65 is the new 55? I think 65 is okay.
Okay, so
I think that, Trump is getting up there too in years, and we've seen that not work out so well with Biden. So we've got to start being cognizant of the reality that people, get sick at those ages. If you're electing someone to be the most powerful person, you want to know that they can go the distance for 4 years.
That's
and that
right.
Their brain will too.
Well, we're about to go the distance because we're still 2 years away from that election, and it's already heating up.
It's already started, yep.
Weather brought to you by McDonald's. Enjoy world-famous fries at McDonald's because it helps Ronald McDonald House Charities of Mid-Missouri.
Fox News, I'm Chris Foster. Witnesses for the grand jury investigating efforts to overturn the election are being asked by federal prosecutors about former President Trump's direct involvement, according to several reports. Trump tells the America First Policy Institute,
everything this corrupt establishment is doing to me is all about preserving their power and control over the American people.
It was his first time in D.C. since leaving office. The Federal Reserve today is expected to announce another 3/4 point interest rate hike meant to fight inflation. White House economic advisor Brian Deese says besides the Fed,
we have identified a set of very clear steps that we could take and that we could take working with Congress.
Louisiana Senate Republican John Kennedy on Fox News is blaming President Biden for the inflation.
It is rampant. It is unrestrained.
An interest rate hike today would be the fourth straight announced since March. The announcement's expected at 2:30 Eastern Time. America's listening to Fox News.
This morning,
93.9 The Eagle News Time with Robinson's Cleaners. Robinson saves you time. It is 6:31, and right now we do have a light rain falling here in Columbia, and we continue to see precipitation. It's 69 degrees in Jefferson City, 69 as well in Columbia. We already had about a half an inch of rain at Sanborn Field in Columbia. Nothing severe, but that ground continues to be saturated. More on the weather and the state of emergency in Missouri in just a moment. I'm Brian Houseworth. Good morning, everyone. A mid-Missouri lawmaker who chairs the House Veterans Committee says Missouri leads the nation in veteran suicides. Jefferson City Representative Dave Griffith chairs the Veterans Committee. He also chairs the House Interim Committee on Veteran Mental Health and Suicide. They'll hold a hearing on the issue at 11 o'clock this morning at the State House.
I'd like for Missouri to be first in almost everything. This is one number I wish we were last.
The chairman tells 93.9 The Eagle the Veterans Commission and the Missouri Department of Mental Health will testify at this morning's hearing. No public testimony will be taken, but it will be taken at the next meeting. Missouri's record rainfall, meantime, and historic flooding prompting the acting governor, Mike Kehoe, to sign an executive order declaring a state of emergency. Missouri, at least parts of it, receiving more than 8 inches of rain in a 6-hour time frame. The National Weather Service says it's the highest 24-hour rainfall total ever on record, topping a hurricane in 1915. Galveston, Texas. More than 100 people turning out for free guided tours Tuesday. Columbia Regional Airport's $23 million new terminal. Many of them excited to walk through the passenger boarding bridges. Airport manager Mike Parks predicts you're going to like it.
It's going to make a difference, right?
Yeah.
For everyone flying out, whether it's hot or cold, it's going to make a huge difference in the experience that each customer has.
New terminal scheduled to be completed in September. Current terminal built in 1968. In Harbison Walker, job fair in Fulton, 7 a.m. to 6 p.m. today. Our news time, 6:33. And our news brought to you this morning by MidAmericaMortgage.us. Apply now for a loan on your dream home. Turning our attention now to sports. If you're a Cardinal fan, got to tell you, this may have been one of the worst performances team-wise that, quite frankly, I've seen this year. It just was not a good game, not a good performance from the start. Really no positives to come out of this game. 14 hits the Blue Jays had. The Cardinals lose to Toronto 10-3. Just have to put a game like that behind you and move on. Game 2 in the series is tonight at the Rogers Center north of the border. 6:07 first pitch right here on 93.9 The Eagle. Angels look really good. The Anaheim Angels last night, some fine pitching. They shut out the Royals by a score of 6-0 at the K. They play again tonight in Kansas City. 7:10 is the first pitch, although rain is in the forecast. Maybe some thunderstorms as well. Sports brought to you by MidAmericaMortgage.us. 93.9 The Eagle News Time, 6:34. Traffic check, MidmoHires.com. Local companies are looking for local people. MidmoHires.com to post your job opening today or to find a job. You can do so, MidmoHires.com. I did speak to Jared Maples. Jared is the overnight meteorologist most nights at the National Weather Service in Weldon Spring in St. Louis. Spoke to him about an hour ago. And basically what we have right now in northern Boone County is still rain falling. About 4 inches officially. Centralia, Hallsville, 2.91. Some of you getting a little bit more than that. No road closures there. Nothing in our immediate area, but we do have some road closures still to report in Montgomery County. And as you go further to the east, all sorts of problems still in the St. Louis area. Lots of damage. The congresswoman from that area, Cori Bush, says she will ask the President of the United States to issue a federal disaster declaration. 6:35, 93.9 The Eagle.
This is Stephanie Bell in for Brandon Rathert. I am joined by Columbia attorney Jennifer Bukowski.
Good morning.
And Brian Houseworth.
Good to see you. Good to see you.
And producer Hannah.
What up?
Jen, you were just reading this tweet to me yesterday, and as mothers with children in the school system, I thought, I think that, I don't know, I'm split on it. I think in one way, I think that's a really good idea. And in another way, I thought, I don't know.
Yeah, this tweet is by Matt Walsh, who works for the Daily Wire. He's a bit of a provocateur on Twitter. And he tweeted, there should be a camera in every classroom, and any parent should be able to access the footage whenever they want to find out exactly what teachers are doing and saying to their kids. I'm torn because any parent should be able to access that. So if your kid is saying something stupid in class, any parent is going to have footage of it.
So a lot of pressure on the kids.
Yeah, so it would be the kids on camera, too. So that's one aspect I don't think is being addressed by that tweet. But to be fair, cameras were kind of in the classroom that parents got to look over their kid's shoulder during the pandemic. And I think it was eye-opening for a lot of people, which led to parents getting upset about the curriculum.
I think that's right. And, you know, from a safety perspective, too, I heard a lot after Uvalde and stuff that people were, you know, they wish there would have been more eyes on the building. And you think, like, you know, where is the shooter? What's happening? You know, you think how that situation might have been different if people could have seen in. So I think about it from a safety perspective. And I've had conversations with friends about this in the past. I remember a girlfriend in when we were early on, before kids, and she was talking about how she had picked one doggy daycare, she lived in the city, over another doggy daycare because the doggy daycare had cameras. And so she was so obsessed with her dog, but that way she could dial in during the day when she was at work and check on her dog to make sure that it was happy and feeling loved and just make sure it wasn't being mistreated. And I'm like, if we do this for dogs, right? You know, wouldn't it be nice to be able to just pop in and check in on your kids? I don't know. I try to think about it. Like, if I had the opportunity to stream my kids, you know, classroom every day, like, would I really do it? I don't know.
Yeah, I wouldn't check on my dog online, and I don't know how much of school I would attend with my kids, but maybe I would check in just to see what's going on, because I'm like, how's your day? Fine. What'd you do?
Nothing.
Stuff. Nothing. You know, it's like I'm a trained cross-examiner, and I'm trying to get responses out of my kids. It is a struggle sometimes.
So if you have thoughts on this, should there be cameras in classrooms, give us a text or a call, 573-874-9390. I also wonder about the teachers, right? We've had such a hard time recruiting teachers, retaining teachers. We've talked about there are surveys out there saying teachers are pretty unhappy, not only with pay, but just with general, angst from all of the things going on during COVID. And so, no one is monitoring. Well, I guess right now everyone is monitoring me. If you want to watch on Facebook and on YouTube, you can see Jen and I, and people can watch us on video at this job.
And
but
Brian and Hannah.
That's right.
Good to see everybody.
But no one is, at my law job and other jobs I've had, no one, I don't have a big brother looking over my shoulder that people, can watch me do my job. And so as a teacher, I wonder if you would have concerns about constantly being on camera.
Sometimes in court, though, you're on camera. I mean, I've had cases covered by the media. There's a court reporter there writing down every word you say. So, when we're lawyers appearing in court, that's all recorded.
Yeah, I practice quite a bit over at the Public Service Commission, and all of that is like live streamed online. When it goes to hearing, you can, if you're having a slow day and you're really interested in utilities, there are a lot of days you can just tune in and watch all day long.
That's true.
And people actually do watch that feed. So yeah, I guess there are quite a few jobs online. I just wonder, with all the pressures the teachers have to go through, if they would rise up. And you think about how strong the teachers unions are too. I mean, if they got to be in their bonnet over videos in the classrooms, I think it's over, right?
Well, I think it's all the more a reason for school choice, because maybe some parents want that. Maybe some teachers don't want to work at a place that has that. Teachers should have more options of where to teach, and parents should have more options of where to send their kids, and let the market decide.
That is a perfect point, Jen.
Yeah, Jen, on one point you made, I think you've both made very good points about the cameras. When you're in the courtroom, let's just say hypothetically a defense case, murder case, doesn't matter what it is. But yes, when you're up there speaking or addressing a witness or cross-examining, everything you are saying is going to be in the record and the media is there. But let's say your client has something he or she wants to say, and you just kind of have to whisper. Is there enough room there to have some privacy? Because it just seems like it's really tight up there, at least in Boone County. The prosecutor's not that far from you. I mean, the prosecutor in many cases is not far from the defendant.
Right. So there's whispering, and then you can write down notes to each other. And if it's a big trial, I'll often have my first chair, handling the client, and a paralegal, handling the client, because the client's an exhibit the whole time, and I can't be paying attention to the jury, the witness, the judge, the opposing counsel, everything else that's going on, and worry, does my client have a good expression on his face? I don't want him scowling. I don't want him looking angry. He needs to remain calm, because you don't want the client looking upset, because then people are like, oh, he's scary, right? So, so I'll have my first chair like passing back and forth notes sometimes, and I'll pass back and forth notes with the client as well. then you have to kind of have those conversations on break too.
Yeah, absolutely. Very interesting.
Yeah, so Travis has some thoughts on cameras in schools. We're going to go to the phone lines. Travis, welcome into Wake Up Columbia.
Hey, how's it going?
Good. What are your thoughts?
So I was thinking like a CCTV system, basically like MoDOT has on the highways, where it's just there. Basically, if you had a closed loop system where the police, your local police department, had those monitored. I mean, we've got ADT and Brinks and all these home security monitoring systems that are monitoring our homes. Like you said about the school choice, you can choose to go to this school that has these systems as opposed to, ones that don't. I think having diversity and having more choice in what we do and, also having a couple kids of my own is why I live where I live. I got out of Columbia because of the school system. I originally moved to Ashland that has a much better, more hometown feel to it. And it's just, I feel like my daughter kind of accelerated there where she was kind of getting lost in the sauce in Columbia. So.
And are you still there?
Actually moved to Holt Summit. Just got a little further away from the city. I mean,
do you like the school there?
I like it. It's still that same kind of hometown feel. That when my kid's having problems, I'm notified. I'm not just sent a letter.
Yeah, there's a lot more transparency and contact, I think, between parents and what's going on in the school and smaller schools. So given the choice, if there was a choice to send your kid to a school with a camera, would you make that choice?
Definitely, and I don't think that it's the, be-all, end-all. I mean, they put cameras in all the school buses, and you still have fights on the school buses.
Sure.
It's, it's not going to stop the problems, but it deters a lot of people from making those bigger mistakes. When you see that there's cameras in every classroom, in every hallway, you're less likely to act up. Same as when they put them on the school buses. They put them on the school buses, and there was a lot less than there was before. It's not ending everything, but it's keeping honest people honest.
Yeah, like with body cams on police. Like, it turns out, the police, they're all being polite when the future client of mine is misbehaving, and then there's a video like, no, the cop did not abuse you, and here's you acting stupid. And, it just leads to transparency in general and better behavior on the part of the police.
I understand like a privacy issue there, but at the same time, all our kids have cell phones now. Everybody has a camera in their pocket. Everything's always being videotaped, but it's always after the fact. It's always after something has initially happened. To have those cameras in all the schools, from the front door to the back door, not obviously not in the bathrooms, but you can see who goes in that bathroom, who comes out.
That's a fair point. I never go anywhere now and don't assume that I am somehow being recorded. Well, thanks so much for your insights, Travis, local parent here talking about cameras in schools. We appreciate you being a part of Wake Up Columbia. Coming up next, let's get into some of those new Senate poll numbers from yesterday and really dig in, see how many people are still undecided. It's actually shocking to me. And then I want to point out we've got Brianna Lennon, Boone County Clerk, coming up at 7:10 because people have already been voting. So I kind of want to see where are we at on those absentee numbers. What are her predictions coming into for turnout for next Tuesday? You are listening to 93.9 The Eagle. This is Stephanie Bell in for Brandon Rathert. We are going to be looking at some of these poll numbers. Brandon likes to go pole dancing, but I think I'll skip that for today. But no, there are so many poll numbers coming out. And of course, I think one interesting thing that you should be aware of is some of these polls are conducted by folks who have a vested interest in the Senate race, and those are being pointed out. But some of the candidates are consulted by folks who also own polling groups, and so of course you want to take all of the polls with a grain of salt. And of course, back in the 2020 election, and we've seen the polls be wrong before. So I think Jen said she really doesn't trust polls. I don't, but I do think I don't trust the raw numbers. But I think one of the things that you can rely on is which way people are going. Are they trending upwards or are they trending downwards? And so I think the big story of the last week is that the former governor, Eric Greitens, is definitely trending downwards, and we're seeing a real pickup between Schmidt and Hartzler. And as we know, they are really hitting back on each other, or at least their PACs are. I think they are as well. And they are both now kind of seeing each other as the front runner. And so Vicky Hartzler came out with a chainsaw ad yesterday. It was great.
It was. She was kind of poking fun at, the Erics for how they have been using blowtorches and the biggest guns that they can find in their ads. And she's basically saying, what was it? Senators don't need guns, they need guts.
Yeah,
is that what it was?
No props.
Or no props, yeah.
Yeah, so I really thought that was a well-played ad. She is, in all of the new polls, she's just trailing Schmidt. So there is a new Hill Emerson poll out. It has Schmidt at plus 14. I haven't seen him that high except in that poll. It has him at 39 with her at 25, Greitens at 18. So really showing some movement in favor of Schmidt and Hartzler. And I will just say that I think this is consistent with my theory from weeks back. I was right.
Are you pulling a Brandon Rathert of what was it? Have I ever told you in 2015
that I was a Trump supporter?
Yeah. Are you pulling one of those?
I think I am. But one of my theories was, and a month ago, there were still a ton of undecideds. And what I said was, I don't think the undecideds are going to break for Greitens. I think, a month ago, if you were not already in the Greitens camp, I don't think you would wake up on a Wednesday and be like, who I'm going to vote for? That Greitens guy. I think they were going to break between Schmidt and Hartzler. And so beyond the ads and the bad press from the family law case, I do think you're seeing a little bit of that. I'm going to claim that I was right there, and that a lot of the undecideds are breaking for Schmidt and Hartzler, and that's pushing them to the front. They've also, so there was a Hill Emerson poll with Schmidt at plus 14 out yesterday. Monday, there was the Trafalgar Group poll. It was showing Schmidt at just plus 3. And even there was a poll yesterday, the Hill Emerson poll covered that Democratic primary between Lucas Kunce and Trudy Bush Valentine, showing Trudy Bush Valentine up by 4. Now that one is kind of heating up. Did you see the letters that they were trading on the Democrat side? I guess she's represented by Mark Elias.
Yeah, the A-list Democrat, lawyer in D.C. So
I guess
he probably charges a pretty penny. So it's handy to be an Anheuser-Busch heiress.
Well, she had to report her income, and I forget what it was. It was something like, I made somewhere between $6 and $40 million last year. I'm really unsure. We'll have to pull those numbers later. But it was some, to me, it was like lottery style money. I mean, it was so much money. I thought if I had that much money, I probably would be unsure about how much it was as well. So she can afford Mark Elias, I guess. But that, I think, don't you think that speaks to where the establishment Democrats are? Because he's kind of who you get, right? If you're really ingrained as well. Not only if you can afford it, but also if you're kind of like the party pick. Is that right?
Yeah, but I thought it was interesting, and we're going to have Susie Moore, deputy editor of Red State, on later in the show. She's written a piece. Lucas Kunce has actually outraised everyone in the Senate race on both sides of the aisle.
Not from Missouri folks, though. I mean, isn't a lot of his money coming from out of state?
Yes, I think so. But he's raised over $8 million.
Wow.
And so that is remarkable for someone with no history of holding political office, who lost his, prior race for state rep years ago. He ran in law school when I was in law school with him.
Yeah?
And yeah, so I've
What
known
area
him,
was he going to represent?
Jeff City.
Oh, really? Well, and so I suspect that's where some of this bitterness is coming from. I mean, if you would raise that much money and then the Bush heiress jumps in at the last minute, I think she was quoted somewhere if somebody asked her, when did you first think about getting in politics? And she was like, February, March. He's got to be. So I guess he wrote a letter to her and he's angry over some ad she's running and told her to cease and desist. She hires Mark Elias and they fire a letter back to him and said, we're not taking it down.
Yeah.
It's pretty
Flaring
heated.
up, fighting. It's all going to be moot on Tuesday. If Schmidt or Hartzler wins this race, neither of them would stand a chance in the general.
Yeah, I can't wait to see the polling once we have candidates picked, where the polling is in the general, because you're right. I don't think there's going to be really a race as long as we get Schmidt or Hartzler. Do you think if Greitens were to pull out an unexpected victory that it puts the race in play?
Oh, yes. I think it could. And I had, when I was guest hosting for Randy Tobler, I had a caller, he's a Democrat, and he said that he is going to go and vote for Greitens because he's the weakest one. And because he wants to hurt the Republicans. He didn't even know the names of the Democrats running, which was interesting.
Really?
He was told to do this by another Democrat, and he knows other Democrats that are planning to do the same thing. It would be interesting if that were to backfire, because I think even if Greitens got the nomination and even if, Rhino Danforth's candidate does get the signatures to get on the ballot as an independent, I think Greitens could still win the seat. So if Democrats send him to the U.S. Senate, that would be ironic.
Well, and there's something interesting that whether or not you pull Democrats pulling in Boone County, pulling the Republican ballot might be disappointed about a race that they're not able to vote for. And we're going to have one of those candidates on later in the shows. And we'll talk to Brianna Lennon, clerk of Boone County, at 7:10 about that as well. You're listening to 93.9 The Eagle.
Turning up the heat on Trump. I'm Dave Anthony, Fox News. There are multiple reports the Justice Department is investigating the former president's attempts to overturn election results and his conduct around the Capitol riot. Attorney General Merrick Garland tells NBC News,
"We intend to hold anyone who was criminally responsible for the events surrounding January 6th.
The former president keeps pushing back.
They really want to damage me so I can no longer go back to work for you. And I don't think that's going to happen.
Telling a group of conservatives on his first trip back to Washington from leaving office, the establishment is corrupt, the election was a disgrace, and the House committee also investigating him are thugs. Hundreds of people have been charged for taking part in the riot. Yesterday, a D.C. man who assaulted police with a metal pole at the Capitol was sentenced to 63 months in prison. A British national who's also an American citizen has just been released on bail in Iran, though he'll wear an electronic bracelet. Morad Tabaz was arrested in 2018, got 10 years in an Iranian prison accused of working for the U.S. as a spy. There will be another attempt today trying to lower surging inflation.
Obviously, the high prices are hitting Americans very hard.
But National Economic Council Director Brian D. says we're better off than other countries.
It is different from some places that are facing famine, for example.
The Federal Reserve is expected to implement another interest rate hike today, maybe 0.75 percentage point, which will drive up the cost of getting a loan or paying off debt. None of us got lucky last night. So Mega Millions is now Mega Billion.
The next Mega Millions jackpot just jumped to an estimated $1.02 billion. Lotto fever's been spreading since the last Mega Millions winner on April 15th, driving up ticket sales and the jackpot.
That's Fox's Carmen Roberts. America's listening to Fox News.
Life is about being active. Whether it's about going on your daily tasks or exercising, you know you're well when you're regularly active. But what happens when being active actually hurts by the end of the day? This is the position I found myself in a number of years ago. Everything I wanted to do in my daily life, all of the activity it called for, was held captive to almost constant nagging pain. When I heard about Relief Factor, I was skeptical, but my wife said, give it a chance. Not long after I took it, I could feel the pain begin to melt away, and I've been taking it ever since. And I can tell you that Relief Factor has helped me get my life back. I love that it's not a drug, but it was developed by doctors, and about 70% of the people who try it go on to order more. Your first step to becoming pain-free just might be ordering a 3-week quick start for only $19.95. Go to ReliefFactor.com or call 800-4RELIEF, 800-4RELIEF, or ReliefFactor.com. Find out all about this offer and feel the difference.
The government. 93.9 The Eagle News Time with Robinson's Cleaners. Robinson saves you time. It is 7:03. 69 is our current temperature right now in Columbia. 68 degrees in Jefferson City. We are expecting a high today of around 88 degrees, and our rain is continuing right now as Missouri is under a state of emergency. We do have some road closings in the listening area. Most of those are in Montgomery County, and then more problems off to our east as residents continue to try to clean up from the historic flooding. Good morning, I'm Brian Houseworth. In the 7 o'clock hour, Missouri officials have declared a state of emergency due to the record flooding primarily in eastern Missouri's St. Louis region. St. Charles County included in that. Acting Governor Mike Kehoe has issued an executive order making the declaration. He's acting governor because Governor Mike Parson is currently in Germany on a trade mission. He's meeting with Bayer executives today. Acting Governor Kehoe says St. Peter's received more than 12 inches of rain, while O'Fallon had about 10 inches of rain. Now, O'Fallon and St. Peter's are both in St. Charles County. St. Louis City, St. Louis County also having major damage. They had a lot of apartment rescues in the Hazelwood area. Sam Page, the county executive, pointing out that there are railroad tracks that were destroyed, major railroad tracks. They were destroyed in the St. Anne area as well. Ferguson also with a lot of flooding, hundreds of rescues. First responders had to use boats on interstates throughout the St. Louis region and roads as well to rescue stranded motorists and residents. Again, the entire state officially under that state of emergency, although the biggest area is in the St. Louis and St. Charles County regions. In other news, the $23 million new terminal at Columbia Regional Airport will include a new restaurant. It also will include a storm shelter. We learned that yesterday for the first time. That storm shelter will protect travelers and employees during tornadoes and other severe weather. Mid-Missourians who participated in Tuesday's guided tours of the new terminal are praising this new storm shelter. It's also important to the airport manager. Mike Parks.
It's a rather large room, so I don't have an exact number on how many people in there, but it's on the north end of the building, and so that's just an area that we can move everybody into, and it's easily accessible, and so that's a great thing for the airport.
Jefferson City Mayor Carrie Turgeon was also on hand for the tours yesterday, and she says the fact that they are doing a storm shelter highlights the effort and the planning that went into this. She says they thought of everything. She is praising it. Tornadoes have caused major damage at Missouri airports in previous years. An EF4 tornado hit St. Louis's Lambert Airport, you'll recall, on Good Friday 2011. It ripped through Terminal 1. It caused major damage. Missouri leads the nation in veteran suicides. That's according to a mid-Missouri state lawmaker who chairs the House Interim Committee on Veteran Mental Health and Suicide. Jefferson City State Representative Dave Griffith is a Vietnam-era veteran. He chairs the committee, and he tells 93.9 The Eagle that 146 Missouri veterans committed suicide last year alone.
My hope is at the end of all this, that we can not only look at the suicide and mental health issues that we've got in the veteran community, but to expand it even further to the general population.
There'll be a hearing today. The chairman has called one in Jefferson City at 11 o'clock to take testimony on what is causing this. He said it's gotten worse under COVID. The Missouri Veterans Commission, Missouri Department of Mental Health will be among those testifying today, 11 until 2. They've reserved 3 hours. You can go to the meeting. No public testimony will be taken today, but the chairman tells me he'll take public testimony at either the next meeting or the one after that. They have until the end of the year, and they will complete a report to the full legislature and to Speaker Vescovo by the end of the year. And North America's largest supplier of refractory products hosting a career fair today in Fulton.
The fair will take place between 7 a.m. to 6 p.m., and fair attendees will have the opportunity to speak with current HWI employees to learn about building a career at HWI. HWI produces high-quality refractory products that make manufacturing possible for countless items. HWI will conduct job screenings and on-site interviews for at least 20 production technicians.
That's 93.9 The Eagles' Rachel Romney with that report. Rachel, thank you. Our news brought to you this morning by the Candy Factory in downtown Columbia. They make their chocolate-covered strawberries fresh every Thursday, Friday, Saturday, year-round. Learn more. Candy Factory Online, thecandyfactoryonline.com. 93.9 The Eagle News Time, 7:07. In sports, Toronto whipping the Cardinals last night in Canada 10-3 as the Blue Jays had 14 hits in the game. The Angels shut out the Royals last night 6-0. So the Angels and Royals play again today at Kauffman, 7:10 the first pitch. Weather could be a factor for that. Cardinals in Toronto as well, game 2. And the final game of their series, that'll be at the Rogers Center. 6:07 is the first pitch right here on your home for Cardinal Baseball, 93.9 The Eagle. Our sports brought to you by McDonald's. You can enjoy world-famous fries McDonald's because it helps Ronald McDonald House of Mid-Missouri. 93.9 The Eagle News Time, 7:08. All right, John, thank you, and great work today on television with Megan, as always. Our weather brought to you by McDonald's. McDonald's helps the Ronald McDonald House of Mid-Missouri. Right now we have rain falling in Columbia, 69. 7:09 traffic check. MidmoHires.com. Local companies looking for local people. MidmoHires.com. 2 very quick traffic notes. 1, Montgomery County right now, primarily rural roads in Montgomery County, which is basically the county between, almost smack dab in the middle between St. Louis County and Columbia, Boone County. That county has a number of road closings this morning, so be prepared for that in Montgomery County. Primarily rural roads, but they're right off of big roads as well, so be expecting that. Also, the heavy rain we've been seeing is impacting the bridge project on the Missouri River Bridge. Hannah, the producer, pointing out they were not out there overnight, and this forecast does not look likely that they'd be able to get out there tonight. But if it is weather permitting, they are going to be out on the bridge in Jeff City at 7 o'clock tonight. I'm Brian Houseworth, 93.9 The Eagle.
It's actually Wake Up Columbia with Stephanie Bell featuring Jennifer Bukowski this morning. Thanks for joining me, Jen.
Great to be here.
You hear Jen regularly on the Gary Nolan Show here at Zimmer at from 10:30 to 11:30 on Tuesdays. And you've also been doing a lot of filling in. You filled in for Randy Tobler, who's here at 4 o'clock earlier this week, and you'll be guest hosting for Gary on Friday this week, right?
Yeah, we have substitute teachers. I'm like a substitute radio host, but it's so fun to be here. I can't say no. I love talking to the listeners and talking politics and news of the day.
Well, and I think earlier you talked about Matt Walsh with the Daily Wire of being a provocateur on Twitter, but your Twitter feed is pretty fire some days too. You tend to rile some people up.
Yeah, I get some haters on there here now and again.
So
they can be mean too, but it's fun firing people up and going viral. I've got one about the swimmer Leah Thomas that people are literally still arguing about today, and I tweeted it a week and a half ago, but it's at Esquire on Fire, ESQ on Fire. Check me out there.
I know one time you tweeted out a picture of me and my phone was like unusable for an evening because it was just retweet and retweet and retweet and retweet.
Well,
So
it was
Jen
us
has-
and Beck Sexton, which was fun.
That was really fun. So we are, this morning, we have a great show lined up. We are about to talk to the Boone County Clerk. We've got Susie Moore, the deputy editor at Red State, on at 7:30. And later we'll be talking to Kayla Jackson-Williams, who's a candidate for Boone County Associate Circuit Court coming up. So I don't know how we ended up with like an all-female guest cast this morning and a lot of lawyers too, but I like it.
Brian Houseworth is outnumbered here. You're like the guy in the middle on that Fox show.
Exactly. The outnumbered the guy at the couch.
All right. Well, we're going to welcome in Brianna, Lennon. We know this is a super busy time for you, so thank you so much for joining us this morning.
No, thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here this morning.
I know usually you and Brandon likes to make bets, and so he starts making bets about what the voter turnout is going to be. And so, we've been in absentee voting now for a while, and I didn't know if you had officially published any predictions for Tuesday, or if you could give us any updates on where we are on absentees so far.
Yeah, so I'm still thinking, I've said between 35 and 40%, which would be pretty average for an August election. And it seems to be going on that path. If you think back to April was in the 20s. And if you're just basing it on absentee, we hit the number of in-person absentees yesterday that we had for April. And we've only got the rest of this week, we're open on Saturday morning and then Monday for people to come in and vote absentee. So unless we get flooded with people, we are slightly above the number that we would have for the April election. And then same for the mail-in absentee. We only had about 200 more people request mail absentee ballots than the number of people that requested in April. So we're slightly ahead of that, which would put us in the 35% turnout range. If we're basing it just on absentee.
How does that compare to prior, off-cycle years?
It's pretty comparable. I would say I was looking back at 2020, and I had forgotten that we were under 30% for the August 2020 election. And granted, there were a lot of circumstances in 2020, but I was kind of surprised that I had forgotten we were under 30%. But normally in an off presidential year, we do hit around 30 to 35% for our August election, and then November will probably be in the 60% range.
Can you say how many people are polling Republican versus Democrat? Is it unusual? Because I know the Republicans have a lot more races in play next week than do the Democrats here locally.
Yeah, so I don't know, actually, because we don't track that when people come into the office and ask. Okay. We only track the style of ballot, but not the party.
But you do, you're in charge of printing the ballots when you're trying to predict.
The polling locations, it's a pretty good 50-50 split in a lot of them. And then there's areas that always have much more of one party's turnout, and so we take that into account too. But for the most part, it's been pretty much the same as the previous August elections, I think, in terms of our preparation, because we always order way more ballots than we need so that we don't run out. So even if we did have somebody that, like a polling location that flipped different ways that had you normally voted one particular way, we'd still have enough ballots, because I always err on the side of having way too many.
That's wise.
Yeah. Brianna, we appreciate you joining us live on Wake Up Columbia. Again, you're going ballpark with about a 35 to 40% projection, and we'll see how that everything works out. You're normally very, very close on these, and it's always tough to tell, even looking at the absentees. Two very quick questions. One, you mentioned the office is open on Saturday. We have a lot of listeners I know that work in Jefferson City. It's very tough for them. Some people have to go out of town. What can people do on Saturday? What are the hours, and how will that work?
Yep, so we are open at the Boone County Government Center. We're in downtown Columbia at the corner of 9th and Ash, and we'll be open from 9 a.m. until 1 p.m. for absentee voting, for questions, whatever it is that you need. And in order to do that, you just have to bring a form of identification, and we will check you in and get you a ballot, and you can fill out your ballot and put it in the machine. So you do have to have absentee reason. So like you said, you do have to be out of town or be serving as a poll worker. Some of our poll workers have not all voted absentee yet, and so they want to get that out of the way too. So yes, if you're going to be out of town and you can't make it into the office during the weekday, then Saturday, 9 a.m. to 1 p.m.
Yeah, just to let people know, the new state law that has take effect August 28th is tied in with voter ID. Brianna's absolutely right, because the new law will allow no excuse absentee voting. You're going to have a good reason of being out of town, et cetera. So that's 9 to 1. One more quick question, and that is the fact in the 3rd Ward, which I live in, there's a huge race, lots of interest. I can tell you the residents are very interested. Mr. Scala and Mr. Lovelady are in a rematch. Basically, it is I don't know what else to call it, because it was a tie vote. And my question is this: hypothetically, we saw this 1,102 votes to 1,102. What happens if they tie again? What would happen if they? Let's just say, and that assumes everybody votes.
I feel sorry for Brianna.
It's like the game of war. Then you lay down 3 more cards and flip it over, right?
It's going to be exciting the first time for you, Brianna, but for it to happen again, that'd be kind of a headache.
Yeah, what would happen?
Yeah. It would be the same thing. We'd have to certify the election, and then the city of Columbia would have to. Well, the candidates, and who knows, at this point, maybe one of the candidates would say, "You know what? We're done. I'll concede." But the candidates would either have to agree to pull names out of a hat or something like that, or one of them could concede, or the city of Columbia would have to call yet again another election. But I don't know. I don't know if lightning would strike twice in this particular race.
You never know exactly. Well, it's good information. So the answer basically is it's either up to them, or if they tie, we're having another election. If they choose not to, that'd be interesting. Thank you for that.
So I do want to just talk about voters that have been coming into your office. Has there been any confusion with the passing of the new law? And then also, we kind of had some different rules during COVID that then sunsetted. Are you getting a lot of questions or confusion by voters as they come in?
The biggest question that we've been getting about absentee has been the COVID excuse. Because I think a lot of people, we had the 2021 elections and things like that, but lots of times the people that vote in April elections are not always the same as the ones that vote in August. So this might be the first time since 2020 that some people have come out to vote absentee, and they are surprised that that COVID excuse is no longer there. So we've gotten a lot of questions from people that have said, well, that's why I wanted to vote absentee. What should I do? And we've had to explain that the law did sunset, and unfortunately, it's not an option anymore. But that's pretty much been the biggest question we've gotten. Other than lots of people unaware that redistricting has happened, so we've had a number of people that have come back to double check whether they have gotten the right ballot, because they see a different congressional district or a different House district, and they want to make sure that that is the one they're supposed to be getting, because redistricting has changed so many people's House districts and congressional districts that it's been hard for a lot of voters to keep up with.
Sure, and we were seeing some frustration on our social media pages about pulling different ballots, because I think there are a lot of Democrats, as Jen had talked about that want to pull a Republican ballot to vote in that U.S. Senate race. But if you do that in Boone, then you cannot vote in this associate circuit court race. And there's only two candidates. They're both on the Democrat side, so this primary will essentially decide that race, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And that's a really good point, because lots of people, and I know that this happens on Election Day because we have to train our poll workers, and they always come back, and it's their number one thing the voters ask them is, why do I have to pick a party? And it's because the August election is a nomination process, and you do have to choose one of the party ballots. Good thing to know in this case, too, is there's only 4 political parties. The Green Party is no longer on a recognized list of parties for the state of Missouri, so there's no Green Party ballot. So you'll have to pick Republican, Democrat, Libertarian, or Constitution. And normally we also have a nonpartisan option. If somebody doesn't want to pick a party at all and they just want to vote on issues that are on the ballot, but there are no issues on the ballot. This is the first time in over 12 years where we haven't had a countywide issue or a statewide issue. So unless you're in the 3rd Ward like Brian, that's the only nonpartisan race that's on the ballot. So 3rd Ward voters do have a nonpartisan ballot option, but everybody else will have to pick a party ballot.
Special enough this election.
Well, thank you so much. I know, again, it's a busy time. We appreciate all the work that you're doing and the work of the folks who are working on Saturdays, and I'm sure we'll be putting in extra time over the next couple of weeks. We appreciate you joining us.
Yeah, thanks.
All right, coming up, we are going to get into What's Hot with Hannah. Did you hold over a What's Hot with Hannah from yesterday, Hannah?
I did.
Okay.
You're going to call him out like that?
It's still hot. It's still hot, baby.
Well, it is 7:25-ish, which means it's time for What's Hot with Hannah, and it's
7:27. Come on, man. You know, all week long, I've had the fill-in hosts say, we're going to get to What's Hot with Hannah on time. And it hasn't happened yet.
You were tattling on our friend Chris Arps. Apparently he
yeah,
didn't make
I think he forgot to do it. We teased it in a segment, and then he pulled a Rathert. And after the commercial break, he talked about something completely different.
We'll give him some grace for now.
Yeah. So the internet is kind of losing its mind right now over Klondike discontinuing the Choco Taco.
Oh,
Oh, no. I like the Choco Taco.
It's been around for over 40 years. And Klondike is saying, you know, it's not a bestseller, and we basically want to devote more funds to our bestsellers. So, yeah, it's discontinued.
So sad because, like, tacos are kind of having a moment. They have been for a while. I mean, there's shirts about tacos. Everyone loves a taco. It's like a thing now. And
I love tacos for breakfast, tacos for lunch, tacos for dessert. But I never even see those in stores. I've only seen them in, like, ice cream. You know, when the ice cream man goes by or something, that's the only time I even see those things.
Well, and Klondike is trying to, like, smooth things over with fans. So they're saying, yeah, they're discontinued in stores, but maybe in a couple years they'll come back to ice cream trucks. But they didn't give a specific timeline, so that doesn't sound very promising.
Well, maybe it'll be like the McRib, like, get it while you can.
Yeah, I think that actually is a good it's marketing genius. Now, you used to be able to order them, like, at Taco Bell's. Do you remember that? I used to be able to get one. I wonder if you still can. I don't think so. Do they even sell cinnamon twists anymore?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, good.
I think the world would riot if they got rid of cinnamon twists at Taco Bell.
All right. Probably so. I love a good food What's Hot with Hannah.
Even if it's cold. It's a cold topic right there.
I love it. That was a Hannah-ism from Jen right here.
It was.
All right. We've got Susie Moore, deputy editor at Red State, coming up. And it's going, once you narrow the circle, Jen, to lawyers, moms, conservatives, we're going to have 3 on the show at once. How fun is that?
It is.
Fox News. I'm Chris Foster. Former President Trump's personal involvement in trying to overturn 2020 election results is under investigation by the Justice Department, according to several reports on grand jury witness questioning.
Who has been through anything like this, seriously? Certainly no politician and definitely no president.
The former president there back in D.C. speaking to the America First Policy Institute. Senate votes expected today on what's known as the CHIPS Act.
It provides billions to incentivize the production of semiconductors, chips, here in the U.S. Senate Minority Leader Mitch McConnell said it's a national security issue, and it's about
making sure we have adequate supply here at home of things that are absolutely indispensable.
The bill also invests in research and development into things like quantum computing and AI.
Fox's Jessica Rosenthal. Supporters hope that bill is passed by the House and signed by President Biden into law before the August recess in 2 weeks. America's listening to Fox News.
93.9 The Eagle News Time with Robinson's Cleaners. Robinson saves you time. It is 7:31. We do have some light rain falling here in mid-Missouri. 69 is our current temperature at 68 degrees in Jefferson City. Light rain continues to fall. Good morning. Here's some of the stories we're working on for you in this 7 o'clock hour. Missouri's acting governor has declared a state of emergency. Historic flooding in eastern Missouri, primarily St. Charles County and also St. Louis City, St. Louis County as well. St. Peter's, 12 inches of rain. O'Fallon, 10 inches of rain. In the St. Louis area at Lambert Field, 9 inches of rain. That breaks an all-time record according to the National Weather Service, breaking a record that was set in the 1915 hurricane in Galveston, Texas. The boats were out, the authorities using boats throughout the eastern part of Missouri as they had to rescue hundreds and hundreds of people from the highways and also from their homes who were trapped as well. Governor Mike Parson monitoring things from Germany. He's on a trade mission. That is why Mike Kehoe is acting governor. Here in Columbia, a woman is jailed without bond after a daytime home invasion in Fulton.
During the noon hour yesterday, Fulton police were called out to a home invasion that was happening on Kenwood Drive. They got a vehicle description, pulled the vehicle over, and found 19-year-old Skeasia Rowland and 4 juveniles. Investigators say they found a loaded gun in the car, along with some airsoft guns, marijuana, and items believed taken from the home. John Marsh, Zimmer News Network.
More than 100 people turning out for Tuesday's free guided tours. Columbia Regional Airport's new terminal, and Harbison Walker doing their job fair at their big Fulton plant today until 6 o'clock, 7:33. In sports, Toronto whipping the St. Louis Cardinals last night in Canada 10-3, and whipping is an understatement. This was just a bad performance by the Cardinals. Not a whole lot of positives really to mention. This is one of those games you just want to forget and move on. It just wasn't happening from the very beginning, defensively, offensively, and Toronto is loaded in that division. What a division in the Yankees, and they're definitely looking like a playoff team. The Toronto Blue Jays, especially in that stadium, very tough to beat. It's called the Rogers Center. Beautiful stadium, by the way, if you had a chance to see the game on television. 10-3 Toronto, the Blue Jays with 19 hits in the game. St. Louis hopefully can get back on track tonight. Second game of the 2-game series. 6:07 first pitch. We're on the air with Mike Claiborne, Claibs, if you will, and John Rooney. And also Mike Claiborne will be doing the play-by-play, and Rick Horton will be on the broadcast as well. They're on the air in the 5 o'clock hour here on 93.9 The Eagle. Angels shutting out the Royals last night at the K by a score of 6-0. They play again tonight at Kauffman Stadium in Kansas City. Their first pitch is at 7:10 tonight. Our news and sports brought to you by Dr. Kent Willett, WillettDentalAssociates.com. 7:34. Traffic check with MidmoHires.com. Local companies looking for local people. MidmoHires.com. Find a job or post your job opening today. Our roads right now pretty quiet in mid-Missouri. We do have some road closings to report in Montgomery County. Quite a few of them are closed in Montgomery County. Now, most of those are smaller roads, and they were hit very hard by the rain that moved through, starting up in the Centralia area, moved through Mexico, and then down into Montgomery County, through Warrenton into St. Louis County. That is probably the hardest hit area in mid-Missouri, although nothing like the damage we saw in St. Louis. But there are road closings in that county, so be prepared for that, especially if you're farming in those areas, those gravel roads. Most of them are closed this morning. Another update, 8:03, breaking news immediately. I'm Brian Houseworth, 93.9 The Eagle.
What's up with that, Gary? You don't like listening to Stephanie Bell and Jennifer Bukowski? I can't get a shout out from Gary Pinkel. Seriously? All right.
I'm sure you could. He does. I can tell you, he definitely listens to the show.
And he's been on the show about doing. He does a lot of charity work now, and it's been nice to have him in studio.
Maybe we could get Drink to give us a shout out.
There we go. I like it.
I don't know if he listens or not. I don't know, but he very well may.
Brian, I thought you were gonna nominate your first loser of the week during the Sportscast today. Your news about the Cardinals is not good, and I think that's about as close as I've ever heard you get to.
Yeah, I mean, there's just no. I mean, there's certain times where you just can't spin something. I mean, there's no way to spin that performance. And what's really sad is a lot of the Cardinal fans are pointing fingers. Quite frankly, some of them are pointing fingers at Goldschmidt and Arenado. Others, because they're not vaccinated. Others are pointing the fingers at the fans. Really, in a game like that, I'm not sure if you would have had Mickey Mantle in the lineup with the way they played last night. I just wasn't going to happen. And those are the type of games you just forget about and move on. That's really all you can do.
probably a good thing, and hopefully we can get back on the right track soon. Well, we want to welcome into the show Susie Moore. She's deputy editor at Red State, and I think you all heard her yesterday for a bit with Chris Arps, who also writes for Red State. And Susie, it's nice to finally talk to you. So we see you at a lot of Jen and I see you at a lot of conservative events. You're a regular contributor across the state on conservative talk radio, but I don't know that I've ever talked to you on Wake Up before. So welcome in.
Good morning, and thanks. I think you're right. I don't think we've ever actually talked on the radio before. We talked in person many times, but this is the first.
Well, we're glad to have you. Now, Jen was just telling me about this article she read on Red State that we were hoping you could shed some more light on, Jen.
Yeah, so Susie, great to be talking with you and on the radio. It's fun seeing you in real life, too, when we do at all these conferences and at Show Me Institute events as well. But tell me, can you tell the listeners about who is funding all of the various candidates? I thought it was really interesting that it appears Lucas Kunce is leading everyone in fundraising, according to your article here. But you looked at who is getting the most money and where it's coming from. Share the high points of that.
Yeah, sure. It's interesting. There's a lot of great resources that allow you to look into this, and that the candidates have to report. I think every quarter, they have to report like all the donations and everything they're receiving. So they have to report their receipts, and then what they've spent, and then what they've still got on hand. And when you can go to a couple different places to look at that. Open Secrets is one of the websites that gives you that information, and then you can look at their FEC filings, that sort of thing. So I was curious about this because I kept hearing things about, so-and-so's money's all coming from out of state. And I thought, that's interesting. I wonder if that's true, and I wonder why that would be. So when you look into it, yes, if you compare all the candidates, both Democratic and Republican alike, Lucas Kunce has the most money that's come in so far. He's got something over $4 million. I haven't been paying super-duper close attention to the Democrats because obviously the focus right now is on the primary and the GOP side of that. But it is interesting that he has that much, since obviously he's being opposed by Trudy Bush Valentine, who's got a lot of money of her own. So that I thought was an interesting facet of that. But what's even more interesting is when you look at the geography of where their donations are coming from, particularly on the Republican side. All of the vast majority of the donations that Eric Greitens is receiving, and also Mark McCloskey, are from out of state, whereas the vast majority for instance, Vicki Hartzler or Eric Schmidt are from in-state. And I think that's an interesting thing to think about. There's been a lot of talk about, there's a lot of history here with some of these candidates and whether they've got support of Missourians or not. I do think it's important to realize that a lot of the support is coming from out of the state.
Yeah, because if it's coming from in-state, like it is for Hartzler and Schmidt, that shows that there's a connection with their future constituents and a relationship of trust where you're willing to invest in that candidate. Being a donor, that's a big decision as to which candidate to write a check to. And it's always suspicious to me when you see a large amount coming from out of state. It's like, what is the interest of these out-of-state people in picking our senator? Why are they investing in them? I trust more when the candidate is raising money from in the state than outside of it.
Well, and wouldn't you say that Lucas Kunce is kind of the Democrat version of Eric Greitens, because he went into the military.
Literally for more reasons than people know.
Well, he went into the military and then he basically moved to D.C. and he wasn't working for a veterans charity, but some sort of nonprofit that was somehow related, I think, to veterans or military, and really lived in D.C. and led led that swamp life until he decided suddenly he was interested in running again, and then moved back, not too far before. So I guess I'm not that surprised that his money's coming from out of state. But I do think, like you said, it's important. Do you see him as kind of the Democrat, Eric Greitens?
I think there are definitely some parallels there. When you look at their background and their history, and there's a lot of things that do kind of stack up. And I think that was maybe one of the reasons why, he was seen as a strong potential for the Democrats. Obviously, there are thoughts that with the baggage that former Governor Greitens brings with him, that the Democrats might stand a chance against him if he were the nominee, versus the more traditional Republican candidates that do not have that baggage that they're carting with them. And so I think that they wanted to have somebody who could be a good answer to him, and a foil for him, if you will. One of the things, too, that was interesting, so just to break down the percentages real quick. So almost 78% of Greitens donations are from out of state. That's a pretty big chunk. Whereas 78% of Schmidt's are from in-state, 75% of Vicky Hartzler's are from in-state. So that it's like flipped on its head. But the other thing that's kind of interesting about that too is, and it's not an exact science because you're looking at two different databases. And yeah, I'm a numbers nerd. Sorry.
Me too. And Brandon's not here, so Hannah knows I love when Brandon's gone. I love to dig down and nerd out, which sometimes he doesn't love to do with me. So go for it.
You can go back and look at who donated to Eric Greitens in 2016 for his gubernatorial race, and compare that against the people that are donating for him now. And I'm going to tell you right now, there is very little overlap. Like maybe a very small handful of donors from 2016 are with Greitens this time around.
I think he burned a lot of bridges. And, just in my own personal life, he assembled a team of some of the top talent in the state. And a lot of people put their trust in him, and they moved to Jeff City and uprooted their careers to, get on this path with him. A lot of people had a lot of faith and got burned by that. So I'm not surprised to see a lot of folks who were originally in his camp, not to be there now.
Or maybe it's because he hasn't really been going around the state asking, because he has a billionaire, or he did have a billionaire, writing 7-figure checks to his PAC. Maybe he's not spending a lot of time courting donors in the state of Missouri. I mean, I'm a donor and I haven't heard from him.
Mm-hmm. Two of his biggest donors are one of them was Uline, who's the I can't think of, he's from Uline in Wisconsin. He donated I want to say over $2 million, and then the founder of Home Depot, Bernie Marcus, had put $1 million into the campaign. So yeah, that's been the source of much of his campaign donations, and neither of those are from Missouri.
Let's go back to the Democrat side for just a minute. So apparently there were some letters traded yesterday or the day before between the Kuntz campaign and the Trudy Bush campaign over an ad. And I don't even remember.
Chuck Hatfield tweeted. He's our friend on the left, I guess, the lawyer down in Jeff. And he's saucy on Twitter, man.
And
he's worth following.
And he listens to Wake Up Columbia, or at least he says he does on Twitter. But he tweeted out one of these letters. So I don't know who was representing Lucas Kuntz, but they sent a cease and desist. And Mark Elias shows up in Trudy Bush's corner to say, we're not doing anything here. So I mean, does that say anything to you about who the establishment is supporting, or about the race itself, that Mark Elias is stepping in on behalf of Trudy Bush Valentine?
Anytime I hear the name Mark Elias, my ears perk up because of all of his associations. And they're not great associations as far as I'm concerned. But if he's getting involved, then there's big money and heavy hitters involved. And I immediately distrust what's coming out of that camp then. But yeah, it is kind of interesting to see them align. I didn't actually see the letters exchanged. I know there's been some back and forth between them, and obviously, even though I'm not going to be voting in the Democratic primary next week, I'm interested to see who how that shakes out. How's the Democratic turnout going to be? I don't know that we're going to see an Operation Chaos where a ton of Democrats are going to switch to vote for Republican primary just so that they can, vote for the candidate they think would not fare as well, for instance, Greitens. But it'll be interesting to see what the turnout is and how that shakes out. I mean, Trudy Bush Valentine, they're both relative newcomers to the scene as far as name recognition and, a reputation in Missouri. So I'm fascinated to see how that plays out.
Another Bush.
Another Bush.
We got Corey and, Trudy Bush Valentine.
So what is next for you as far as Red State? What's bubbling up? What are you watching? What are you excited to, be researching and digging in and nerding out about over the next week?
I've got maybe one more piece in me about, there's some additional information I came across with Greitens as far as maybe where some of the funds are being expended and how some other funding issues, nothing like shady, nothing. I'm not alleging anything unethical, just things that raise questions. And I'm trying to dig into and kind of pin down some of those details. So if I can get the information, I am going to try and share my results of that with folks on Red State. Other than that, most of what I do day in and day out is oversee the articles that my contributors are submitting. And make sure that they, got good headlines and not too many typos, that sort of thing. And they cover the bases. There's the daily Biden gaffe, there's the daily Karine Jean-Pierre gaffe, lots of national stuff. But then a lot of local stuff, a lot of California stuff because we have a lot of contributors there. So
Well,
It's a great website. Yeah, if you're on the right, it's a great website to check out all those stories on.
Yeah, check that out at redstate.com, and you can follow Susie on Twitter. What's your Twitter handle?
It's SmoosieQ, SMOOSIEQ.
All right, a good follow there, too. Thanks so much for joining us. We'll be talking to you real soon.
Thanks, y'all. I'll see you soon.
All right, coming up, Jen and I love the discussion of there might be some big appointments coming up.
Yeah, AG. If Schmidt wins, who's going to be AG? If the auditor race goes one way, who will be the next auditor?
And it might mean some big things for folks right here in mid-Missouri. I'm hopeful.
Me too.
All right, you're listening to 93.9 The Eagle. You're listening to Wake Up Columbia. This is Stephanie Bell, joined by Jennifer Bukowski, a regular contributor to the Gary Nolan Show, Tuesdays at 10:30. She's also guest hosting this Friday, so get all of your good questions and frost your buns issues
Frost
ready.
Your Buns Friday on the Gary Nolan Show. Yeah, I'm guest hosting again. And looking forward to it.
And give her a follow at ESQ Esquire on Fire, at ESQ on Fire. She's a good Twitter follow and likes to stir up a little bit of controversy every now and again. I want to take a minute and look beyond next Tuesday. So we're counting down the days. It feels like it's one of those things where it feels like we've been in this Senate race for so long, but then at the same time, it's so close. You know, it's like a weird time.
It's exciting.
It is
so excited to see what happens. And if Schmidt does pull this off, then Parson gets to appoint the next Attorney General. And I think that that's a really important position, considering that we still are stuck with a Democrat president for the next 2 years. That office is so important to our state and to the country to keep the feds in line. And I think you need to pick someone that would be experienced, that could hit the ground running. And I think there's no better choice than Kurt Schaefer, in my personal opinion. Full disclosure, I've been friends with Kurt for many years. I supported him when he ran for Attorney General. But I think he would be an excellent choice to get that office in even better shape and to run things, run the criminal division, run the civil division, defend the state when we get sued, and to also, if their need arises, to sue the federal government or whatever else may be the case, to keep things, federalism and separation of powers, all that stuff going on.
Yeah, there's been kind of reported a list of a short list of candidates. I think one from KC, Kurt Schaefer has definitely been on the list and kind of rising to the top. I think Secretary Ashcroft. Someone said that the governor could appoint Secretary Ashcroft into the AG spot. But I think, it's nice to see some Mid-Missouri names on there, because I do think for Mid-Missouri, getting more Mid-Missouri folks in statewide office. In Missouri, traditionally, we get a lot of people from Springfield and a lot of people from St. Louis, kind of on the statewide stage, we don't always get a ton of people from Mid-Missouri. So we saw Kurt Schaefer's name in the mix there. We're also seeing some Mid-Missouri names in for the rumor about who might be appointed the next treasurer.
Right, because the treasurer, Scott Fitzpatrick, if he wins, then Governor Parson gets to appoint if he wins the auditor race,
correct,
he gets to appoint the treasurer again. It's like musical chairs again. But I think Kurt would be fantastic for AG. I don't have strong thoughts on treasurer, except this has not been mentioned, and this is just my idea, but our friend Aaron Hedlund, he's like a genius. He's an economist. He's chief economist at Show Me Institute, professor of economics. He would be a fantastic treasurer, and I think that we should suggest that, whisper that. Could you send that to Mo-Scout?
People
are saying Aaron Hedlund, put his name in the mix, because he'd be fantastic too.
Apparently the folks at Politico are listening to Wake Up Columbia, because they cited something that was said on the show on Monday. So maybe Mo-Scout's listening as well. Maybe they're listening and they will add Aaron Hedlund's name to the list, but also another Mid-Missouri name. I think, you think about who the governor picked the last time, and he picked Fitzpatrick, and, Fitzpatrick has a long story of running a successful dock company, and as a very young person, and building up, a hugely successful company, and then serving as the budget chair over in the House. So in this instance, you might be in favor of kind of an outsider. Now, Hedlund worked in the Trump administration on it's a really long name, I'm going to get it wrong, but basically on Trump's Economic Policy Advisory Council.
Yeah, he was at the White House before the pandemic happened, and then through the pandemic, through to 2021, and advising the administration on what to do in terms of, paycheck protection or whatever else.
Yeah.
And so, that was a really interesting time for him to be serving in the White House.
Well, and every time I hear him speak, either whether it's through the Show Me Institute or here on Wake Up Columbia, I can listen to all the talking heads, on the national shows, but then I can ask Aaron, okay, what does that mean to me in Mid-Missouri in my daily life? And I feel like he can really communicate things in a way that we can all understand, and we don't need an economics degree to understand. So I really appreciate that about Aaron.
And he understands things at such a high level, and he can explain them. He was on Randy Tobler yesterday. Let's put him on the list of possibilities.
Let's put two Mid-Missouri
people. He doesn't even know I'm saying this, by the way.
Let's put two Mid-Missouri people on the statewide stage.
That'd be awesome.
I think so as well. Well, coming up, we are going to be joined in studio by Kayla Jackson-Williams, a candidate for Boone County Associate Circuit Court.
Overseeing divorces and child custody is an important position.
You're listening to 93.9 The Eagle.
to save us money is going to cost us more. I'm Dave Anthony, Fox News. The Federal Reserve is expected to deliver another interest rate hike today, maybe 0.75%, which will make mortgages and loans pricier.
In an effort to tackle hot inflation running at a 4-decade high, the Fed hopes to slow the economy just enough to curb inflation without causing a recession, which investors fear.
Fox's Hillary Barsky, and on tomorrow we'll get a report on GDP that could show the economy contracted a second straight quarter, which many define as a recession, but the White House says we are not in one, even if that happens tomorrow. Former President Trump under more scrutiny. The Washington Post and others report his conduct under federal investigation related to the election and the Capitol riots.
The Post is reporting that witnesses have met before a grand jury, and those witnesses were asked specifically about conversations with Trump and others in his inner circle who allegedly tried to put in Trump allies in place of electors in some states where now President Joe Biden won after the 2020 election.
Fox's David Spunt, the former president, says...
So where does it stop? Where does it end? It probably doesn't stop.
He told a group of conservatives on his first trip to Washington since leaving office, the system is corrupt and the people after him are sick and sinister, and the House committee also investigating him are thugs. An American has been let out of jail in Iran on bail.
A British national who also holds U.S. and Iranian citizenships. Environmentalist Murad Tabaz, arrested in 2018 and convicted of working for the U.S. as a spy, now reportedly released with an electronic bracelet.
Fox's Lillian Wu. American basketball star Brittany Griner is back in court in Russia today. She pleaded guilty earlier this month, having cannabis vaped cartridges, saying she had no criminal intent. Griner said at her trial today her rights were not read to her when she was detained in February at an airport in Russia. America's listening to Fox News.
If you're living with aches and pains, especially if they're frequent and nagging and relentless, I want you to take a moment and think back to the last time you really felt good. Can you even remember what it felt like? Now, here's even a more important question. What would you give to go back to feeling like that again? Maybe it would just be nice to take a stroll with your loved one or play with your grandchildren. I've suffered from persistent, crippling pain almost all the time for about 5 years. When I started taking Relief Factor, I took it because my wife made me start taking it. I didn't think it would work for me. Yet here I am today, virtually pain-free, doing the things I love to do, all thanks to my wonderful wife and Relief Factor. I love that it's not a drug, but it was developed by doctors, and about 70% of the people who try it go on to order more. Are you part of that 70% that can get your life back? Your first step to becoming pain-free just might be to order the 3-week quick start for only $19.95. Go to ReliefFactor.com or call 800-4RELIEF. Find out more about this offer. Feel the difference. ReliefFactor.com.
93.9 The Eagle News Time with Robinson's Cleaners. Robinson saves you time. It is 8:03. Right now we have partly cloudy skies. Looks like some light rain is still falling outside our studios in South Columbia on Lamone Industrial Drive. 69 is our current temperature. We're expecting a high today of around 88 degrees. The humidity certainly feels lower, and we are under officially a state of emergency here in Missouri, primarily because of the flooding in eastern Missouri. Good morning, and here are some of the stories we're working on for you in this 8 o'clock hour. We'll get to the flooding situation and the executive order from our acting governor here in a moment. We begin, though, with Columbia Regional Airport's $23 million new terminal. It should be finished by September. It's expected to open shortly after that. COU providing free guided tours of the new terminal on Tuesday afternoon, and several hundred people attended. Big crowds on hand, and they went through all the way to 5:30. There was the last tour that came through. Airport manager Mike Parks is proud of the new facility, says it's accessible for everyone.
So this is an airport everyone in mid-Missouri can use, but it's also roomy. So when you walk in, you don't feel so tight with others, and so we expect a lot of people to be flying out of Columbia and into Columbia. However, you still have a lot of room to move around, and you'll be comfortable while you're here.
New terminal will also include a storm shelter and a mother's room. The new terminal's main funding source is a hotel tax approved by Columbia voters back in 2016. Missouri remains under a state of emergency that is due to the record flooding that we're seeing in eastern Missouri, the region there. Acting Governor Mike Kehoe has issued an executive order declaring the state of emergency. He is acting governor because Governor Parson is in Germany on a trade mission right now, meeting with Bayer and BASF. He's in the Netherlands as well. Acting Governor Kehoe says St. Peter's received more than 12 inches of rain. O'Fallon, Missouri, 10 inches of rain. Keep in mind, they'd been in a drought and hadn't had any rain in a month. The flooding led to hundreds of rescues. First responders had to use boats on interstates and roads to rescue stranded motorists, residents as well. A Mid-Missouri lawmaker who chairs the House Veterans Committee says Missouri leads the nation in veteran suicides. Jefferson City State Representative Dave Griffith chairs the House Interim Committee on Veteran Mental Health and Suicide. They'll hold a hearing on the issue at 11 o'clock this morning in Jefferson City.
My hope is at the end of all this, that we can not only look at the suicide and mental health issues that we've got in the veteran community, but to expand it even further to the general population.
Chairman Griffith tells 93.9 The Eagle this has been a bipartisan issue. He praises his Democrats on the committee. They include Robbie Sauls, who is from Independence, and also LaDonna Applebaum from the St. Louis area. He also says the Missouri Veterans Commission and the Missouri Department of Mental Health will testify at this morning's hearing, 11 o'clock to 2. No public testimony will be taken today, but it will be taken at the next meeting. Republican Senators Josh Hawley and Ted Cruz led the Senate challenges in January 2021 to President Biden's victory in the presidential election. The senators, though, the AP says, have largely escaped the House panel's investigation into the Capitol attack. In all, a dozen GOP senators initially planned to challenge President Trump's defeat, but unlike their House GOP counterparts, the Associated Press reports the Republican senators have not been called to testify, leaving them to explain themselves on their own terms. A large employer in Callaway County wants to hire at least 20 new production technicians. They're holding a career fair at their Fulton plant today. Harbison Walker, the largest supplier of refractory products and services in North America. Their job screenings are underway right now. On-site interviews, they started at 7 this morning, go to 6 tonight, and you need to bring a resume. The company says it provides market-leading wages and full benefits after 30 days of employment. That's one of the biggest employers. Huge plant, by the way, in Fulton in Callaway County. And just bring your resume and they will interview you today on the spot. Our news is brought to you this morning by First State Community Bank on Discovery Parkway here in Columbia. They're building a new branch. First State Community Bank. You keep banking, we'll keep building. Member FDIC, equal housing lender. 93.9 The Eagle News Time, 8:07. In sports, the St. Louis Cardinals had a tough game last night. They were without, of course, their two all-star infielders, Arenado and Goldschmidt. They were unable to play because of the vaccination status in Canada. The Cardinals just struggled from the very beginning. 10-3 they lose to the Toronto Blue Jays. 14 hits for Toronto. Toronto also getting 4 walks and 3 home runs in the game, including a grand slam. Vladimir Guerrero Jr. also had a home run in this game. That was a 2-run shot. And the Cardinals actually briefly had a lead, but it quickly disappeared. So they lose it 10-3. Just a 2-game series, and that's good for the Cardinals because it's a tough team they're playing up there north of the border. Very hard to beat them anyway, and much less when you're down your top 2 players. So the second game of the series wrapping up today, 6:07 first pitch right here on 93.9 The Eagle. Angels beat the Royals yesterday 6-0. They play again tonight at Kauffman Stadium. And our sports is brought to you this hour by Anderson Windows. You'll love your new windows. Anderson Windows. 93.9 The Eagle News Time is 8:08. All right now, John, thank you and great work today on television with Megan Drakus and yourself. We appreciate you. 69, it is raining in Columbia. 8:09, traffic check, midmohires.com. Local companies looking for local people, midmohires.com. Find a job, post your job opening today. Roads pretty quiet here in mid-Missouri for the most part. We do have some road closings to report in Montgomery County, right on the edge of our listening area. So if you're traveling through Montgomery County, I'm thinking of you, Jeff Allen, of our staff. We appreciate you. Be very careful because of others as well. Truck drivers, be careful in Montgomery County because of all the roads that are closed there. Primarily, those are gravel roads, but some of them are right off the main roads. Nothing in northern Boone County to report right now in terms of road closings, although Centralia had more than 4 inches of rain. Next update, 8:31, breaking news immediately. I'm Brian Houseworth, 93.9 The Eagle.
Good morning. This is Jennifer Bukowski. I guess I'm filling in for Stephanie Bell, who's filling in for Brandon Rathard. It's great to be here and to be joined by a friend of mine, Kayla Jackson-Williams, who is running for the 10th Circuit Associate Judge. And I don't think people understand why this is such an important position in our community. This is the judge spot that oversees divorces, child custody, whether the government can take kids away from you. You know, this is an important position that affects individuals' lives in our community. There's no Republican candidate at all. So this is going to be decided on Tuesday between the 2 Democrat candidates and people that pull a Democrat ballot. So welcome to the show, Kayla.
Hello, Jen. Thank you so much for reaching out to me and for having me this morning. It's really appreciated.
Well, I'm excited to have there's 2 candidates here. Both have a lot of experience, but you are, like me, a former public defender, and you've been doing civil litigation for a few years now, and our mutual friend Josh Devine introduced us, as well as our mutual friend Judge Oxenhandler. So tell us a little bit about why you want to be this, hold this position, this judicial seat. And I read an article that said that you would bring a family treatment court to Boone County if elected. Tell us about that as well.
So I think a few things are really important to realize about this position. So historically, Division 10 has been the family courts, which, like you said, covers the divorces, child custody, child modifications. It's also our juvenile courts and our adult abuse and neglect courts. And it's been that way for a number of years. However, before I decided to run for this seat, I had a conversation with each of the current sitting judges, including Judge Schneider. And what I learned was Division 10 is going to look slightly different come 2023. So it's not going to be just the family courts. And a few of the other divisions are going to pick up some of that work. So it's actually going to be a little bit more diverse. So it's going to have the family component still, but the juvenile, but potentially landlord, tenant, or any of the other civil dockets, or potentially a criminal docket. Like, there's really no telling what it's going to look like. So with the diverse experience that I have with family, criminal, and civil, I think it'd be a great fit. But as far as the family court or the family treatment court is concerned, I was at a CLE when Commissioner Clevenger came in and talked about the drug courts and the mental health courts and everything that they're doing.
And she's over in Callaway County, which is part of our circuit.
Correct. And so, okay,
technical wire difficulties there. Okay, we can hear you. Go ahead.
So she talked about a family treatment court that Callaway County has. And afterwards, I immediately asked her, why does Callaway County have it and Boone County not, if we're in the same circuit?
Like, I've heard of treatment courts, and drug court. I've had clients get into drug court, veterans court, mental health court. What is family treatment court?
So it essentially allows people to have access to the same type of programming that you would get in mental health and drug court without the criminal component.
So if you're do you have to be going through a divorce or something to get that?
There's a number of different situations. So sometimes if a person is in actual criminal court and they have something pending in Division 10, I would use this hypothetically, if there's some crossover between a custody case or a case where there's potentially looking at the state taking custody of your child, or you have some type of thing going on within that other division, but you don't have the criminal component, you would also be eligible for those same services. So they partnered with an organization in Callaway County in order to make this possible, and it was grant funded. And so
that's good because it can help parents keep their
Exactly.
kids, keep families together, or at least keep children with their parent if they can get those services and be a better parent after receiving those services.
Precisely. And a lot of people want those services, but they can't afford them.
Yes.
And so this would allow them to have access to those services without being, quote unquote, in trouble before getting them.
Yeah. That could avoid them getting in trouble in the future.
So how would we fund that here in Boone County? Is there a similar organization, or are you looking at grant options?
So I've actually already talked with an organization. So Powerhouse Community Development is an amazing organization here in Columbia, and it's run by an individual named Charles Stevenson. And he has an amazing team of people who work with him. And so they currently work with the courts slightly. Like they have a father's program that a lot of our men go through, whether they're in the custody piece of things or even sometimes on the criminal piece of things, and they're just trying to work with their children. Division of Family Services has worked with them, CASA. So they are already a really well-known organization in our community as far as helping families with substance abuse issues or just mental health issues or issues generally. They do a lot with the kids. I actually just received a flyer from one of Charles's employees with like all of these things that they had been doing this summer and like events that were still yet to come. And so Charles has already stated that he would love to partner with me on a grant to potentially bring a program like that here to Boone County.
That's really exciting. So I was reading over your bio, and I was very excited to see that you are a fellow Truman State grad. So Bulldog forever.
Bulldogs, yes.
Shout out to all of my Truman State people. But I want you to reflect back on that time, you know, in college and as you went through law school. I see that you taught some at the law school. Are you still teaching at the law school?
I am still teaching.
Good.
So classes resume on August 22nd.
Okay, so, I mean, was it always a goal of yours to be a judge? I mean, what was the thought process in getting involved in this race and aspiring to be a judge?
So it was an interesting thing, actually. When I was a public defender, a lot of the judges would comment on like my stage presence, so to speak, but my courtroom presence, my ability to articulate, really put up a fight, put up an argument that was not only well-grounded and well-sounded in the law, but also humanized my clients. And they like really admired that. And I had this love for juveniles. And so right before the pandemic hit, I was actually looking to go back to school to get my PhD because I wanted to study the collateral consequences of juvenile incarceration. We have so many studies on the collateral consequences of incarceration generally, but we never focus on the juvenile piece. So I met with a professor of mine as well as someone from the School of Social Work to just kind of get an idea of what that would look like. And then the pandemic hit. And that kind of thwarted things because I had a 3-year-old at the time. So that just wasn't going to work. And so I started talking with another one of the judges again about this idea of my PhD and all of these things. And he brought up the fact that Division 10 also houses the juvenile courts. And what better way to have an effect on the collateral consequences or see how that would play a role in our community than in that position. And so I was like, oh my gosh, that's amazing. So then Judge Oxenhandler and I were having a conversation one day about this same idea of the PhD and my desire to work with the juvenile courts. And that's when he recommended me to the Commission for Racial and Ethnic Fairness, but the juvenile subcommittee, and how I ended up on that commission and on that committee. So my desire to help the juveniles, my desire for there to be more diversity, and just my love and compassion for people is what like really propelled this forward for me.
Now, let's talk a little bit about the ballot. We talked to Clerk Brianna Lennon earlier, and so if there are folks on the Democrat side that want to pull a Republican ballot to vote in that U.S. Senate race, they will not see you on the ballot. Are you hearing from your friends, hey, I'm struggling, you know, I want to vote for you, but I also want to, you know, play in the Republican primary?
I've actually only heard it one time.
Okay.
So, and it was by an old student. I was really surprised by this. So one of my 2020 students was helping me canvass, and he was like, I just have to tell you, I pulled a Republican ticket. I'm so sorry. And so it was really cute and really funny. And I was like, I understand. But it's also gone the other way. Like, I know a number of Republicans who really truly believe that I am the person for this job, that they support me enough to pull a Democratic ticket and vote for me instead of, having a voice in the Republican Senate race. So I think that also speaks volumes about people's thoughts of me and my ability to do this job.
Sure. Well, we really appreciate you coming in. If people want to find out more about you, where can they go?
So they can go to KaylaForJudge.com. They can go to Kayla for Judge on Facebook, or they can email me at KaylaForJudge@gmail.com. And I would be more than happy to respond. I think if you ask anyone who has messaged me on any of those platforms, they'll tell you that I'm very prompt in responding.
So what do the next few days look like for you?
A lot of canvassing, a lot of knocking on doors, and just a lot of meet and greets, as many as possible, to get my face out there as much as possible.
Sure. Well, we really appreciate you coming in. I know it's a very busy time for you, but it was so nice to see you in person.
Thank you.
And if you want to watch us on YouTube or Facebook, go ahead and
man.
get on Facebook or YouTube. You can see us this morning. And so thank you so much. Again, the website's KaylaForJudge.com.
Thank you.
All right, coming up, we are going to do the morning bell, a $50,000 fail. You're listening to 93.9 The Eagle. It's time for the morning bell. So, a $50,000, I'm going to call it a $50,000 fail. When I read this article yesterday, I was like, ooh, that is so exciting. And then this morning when I woke up and heard the news, I thought, oh, that's a fail. So Raising Cane's CEO decided they were going to buy a Mega Millions lottery ticket for all 50,000 employees. Now, I assume Mega Millions is $1. Is that right? So it'd be $50,000 on lottery tickets. I have so many questions. Like, do you just walk into like your local convenience store and be like, excuse me, can I buy 50,000 lottery tickets?
I don't know. I used to sell those because I was video girl at Schnucks back in high school. And I don't know that you'd have enough printer tape or time to print out that many. I think that like a bulk order like that, you'd have to contact like the headquarters, or you'd have to dispatch people to gas stations and grocery stores throughout the community and like say get 500 at each of these places or 1,000, because that's about as many as you could count on getting printed.
Even 500, you can't
tie up the machine like crazy.
Right, or the employee who's sitting there having to print it. I think that's insane. But I guess this morning, none of the 50,000.
It's at over $1 billion now.
Yeah, none of the 50,000 people won. So
who wants to be a billionaire?
Can you imagine if one of them did win? Like, would corporate be going, hey, like...
Yeah, give us our cut. I don't know what the tax implications
they'd be quitting so fast
of all of that is. Also, I mean, if you're the employees, wouldn't you just say like, hey, guys, let's just all enter a raffle. Company, you give $50,000, and then at least it guarantees one of us will win $50K, as opposed to like nobody winning the Mega Millions.
I think it was a smart strategy. They're getting us to talk about them. They're getting PR out of it, and then they get something exciting for the employees to be talking about to boost morale. I think it's nice when companies do things for their employees that they don't have to.
Yeah, they were. That's what I mean. If the $50,000, I think, was worth being like the top story on Fox Business about your company, right? I mean, that's what. So Raising Cane's is, no one was talking about Raising Cane's 2 days ago, but now that they bought all these lottery tickets, apparently, yes. And how
I bet they'll have drive-through lines today. Now I'm thinking about chicken sandwiches.
We have a lot of good chicken places in Columbia, but yeah, I don't know. I'd almost wish they would like have doled out money for like incentive pay, right? Like rather than just giving everybody $1. It almost feels like
this is fun though.
It almost sounds like a participation trophy. I'd rather them like say like, okay, we're going to give $1,000 to the 100 like best performing employees. Are you like it's very like not socialist, but like participation trophy-esque to just be like, here's $1, everybody.
No, I think it's good to reward all employees or give them all something. It's not a participation trophy. It's called, having a good employee environment. Like Veterans United gave a gas card to every employee.
Now that I would appreciate. And I know producer Hannah would appreciate a gas card too, right?
They give one to every employee and then a smaller one to give away to a friend or loved one.
Well, I mean, that's why it's like one of the top places in America to work, right?
Yeah, it's the top 20. And it'll cost more than $1 per gas card these days. You would get a dinky amount of gas for $1, wouldn't you?
You can't get anywhere for $1 these days.
Well, it's sad when somebody offers to buy you a tank of gas and they give you $50 and you're like, thanks, but that's not a full tank.
That's half a tank these days. Although, according to Biden, he's fixed it all and we're getting so much better. All right, coming up, let's talk. There's some issues on the ballot coming up in November, and let's get into that at 8:36. You're listening to 93.9 The Eagle.
Weather sponsored by McDonald's. Enjoy world-famous fries at McDonald's because it helps the Ronald McDonald House Charities of Mid-Missouri. For every pound sold, your local McDonald's restaurants donate 1 penny to the local house.
Fox News, I'm Chris Foster. Another interest rate hike is expected to be announced today, the fourth this year.
The central bank is likely to raise its benchmark interest rate by 0.75 of a percentage point as they did in June, or they could perhaps hike rates by a larger full percentage point in an effort to tackle hot inflation. The Fed hopes to slow the economy just enough to curb inflation without causing a recession, which investors fear.
Fox's Hillary Barsky. Gun manufacturer executives testify at a House Oversight Committee hearing this morning.
Congresswoman Carolyn Maloney, who chairs the committee, wants gun makers to answer as to why their products, such as AR-15 style semi-automatic rifles, are so easily available, referring to them as weapons of war, a characterization most makers and most owners dispute.
That's Fox's Evan Brown. At least 5 people have been killed, with many more hurt in an earthquake in the Philippines. America's listening to Fox News.
93.9 The Eagle News Time with Robinson's Cleaners. Robinson saves you time. It is 8:31, and we have 69 degrees in Columbia, 68 in Jefferson City. Thunderstorms are likely today. Our high around 88 degrees. Cloudy tonight. Chance of storms with a low near 70 degrees. Good morning, everyone. Here are some of the stories we are working on for you in this 8 o'clock hour. A Columbia woman is jailed this morning in Callaway County after a daytime home invasion in Fulton.
During the noon hour yesterday, Fulton police were called out to a home invasion that was happening on Kenwood Drive. They got a vehicle description, pulled the vehicle over, and found 19-year-old Skeasia Rowland and 4 juveniles. Investigators say they found a loaded gun in the car, along with some airsoft guns, marijuana, and items believed taken from the home. John Marsh, Zimmer News Network.
A large employer in mid-Missouri wants to hire at least 20 new production workers and technicians today. They're holding a career fair at their Fulton plant today. Harbison Walker is the largest supplier of refractory products in North America. That fair goes until 6 o'clock tonight. If you want to go, bring your resume. More than 100 people turning out yesterday for the Tuesday free guided tours at Columbia Regional Airport's $23 million new terminal. Many of them walking through the passenger boarding bridges. Airport manager Mike Parks predicts they'll improve the airport experience for you.
It's going to make a difference, right?
Yeah.
For everyone flying out, whether it's hot or cold, it's going to make a huge difference in the experience that each customer has.
And the new terminal will also include a new restaurant, a storm shelter. It's 52,000 square feet. The Missouri House Committee holds a hearing at 11 o'clock on veteran suicides. That will take place at the Missouri Capitol, Jeff City. News brought to you by Hemi Construction. In sports, the Toronto Blue Jays continue to impress. That American League Eastern Division is just loaded with talent. There's not a whole lot of weaknesses up and down the division. The Yankees, of course, with that payroll, especially, and that talent, they continue to lead. But Toronto, right behind them, there's other talent behind Toronto. Toronto beating the Cardinals last night in Canada, 10-3. The Blue Jays had 14 hits. Cardinals giving up 4 walks. Those walks were really critical in the game. 3 home runs. One of them was a grand slam in the game. Vladimir Guerrero Jr. also had a home run for Toronto. You may remember Vladimir Guerrero Sr. He was never cheated at the plate. He swung at practically everything, and he would hit balls that were out of the strike zone over the right field wall. The Sun, a lot the same way. He just goes up there and swings at the plate, and he is dangerous as well. 10-3 Toronto. Game 2 of the series is tonight, 6:07 right here on 93.9 The Eagle. Angels shut out the Royals last night at Kauffman Stadium, Kansas City. 6-0 the final score there. They play again coming up this evening at 7:10. And the Daniel Boone Little League team beating their opponent yesterday. Congratulations to them. They play today at 3 o'clock against opponent out of Iowa. Our news time, 8:34. Traffic check with MidmoHires.com. Local companies are looking for local people. MidmoHires.com. Find a job, post your job opening today. Our roads are pretty quiet here in mid-Missouri. If you want to report a traffic issue, give us a call or a text, 573-874-9390. More team coverage in less than 30 minutes. We have breaking news immediately. I'm Brian Houseworth, 93.9 The Eagle.
This is Stephanie Bell in for Brandon Rathert. I am joined by Jennifer Bukowski, Columbia attorney and regular contributor to the Gary Nolan Show. She's on Gary Tuesdays at 10:30. She will also be filling in for Froster Buns Friday this Friday, so get your frosty topics ready.
Yeah.
To call in. And she's on Twitter at Esquire on Fire. Brian Houseworth is here. Brian is at Brian on the Air.
Good to see you, and welcome to Jen as well. It's been a pleasure.
We have been having a really good time. It's gone by so fast. We've had a fun week on Wake Up Columbia. We want to give a special shout out to Randy Tobler, who filled in on Monday.
No, the ARP's on Monday.
Oh,
Right?
it was ARPS? Okay, well, anyway, we've had some fill-ins. Randy Tobler, who's generally here at 4 o'clock on the Eagle, and then, Chris ARPS, and he's on our show typically on Tuesdays.
Or did he do Gary Monday? ARPS Monday? I don't know.
I
It's been
think
a lot
so.
of
Randy Tobler was here Monday.
fill-ins.
Yeah, exactly.
Sorry.
It's been an interesting
ARPS
week.
was Gary.
But we've been having a really good time, and I know the ARPS took pictures in their Eagles T-shirts yesterday on our Facebook page, so check them out.
I've been doing stuff for the Eagle for 10 years now. For free, and I have no Eagle T-shirt. What's up with that?
We need to work on that.
We will get you
Yes.
one. We will get you one.
I don't have a coffee mug, anything, but Chris Arp. So he's stunting on social media with his Eagle gear and his wife.
With his Eagle T-shirt. And he writes regularly for Red State. And we got to talk to Susie Moore earlier, who was on for Red State, talking about all the crazy financing going on in that U.S. Senate race. It's been really exciting. But beyond the Senate race, we looked toward, who might be appointed in the future if those races shake out how the polls are currently going. And again, beyond the Senate race, in the primary, we do have some issues. We talked to Brianna Lennon, the clerk, about how there really aren't any issues coming up on the August ballot, but November we're going to see some issues. One that's near and dear to my heart, I know. Yours too, Jen, but I don't think that we stand any hope for a constitutional
convention. I've listened to the Hamilton soundtrack so many times. I got to be a delegate to the Constitutional Convention.
It's a really interesting vote because
every 20 years we get to decide whether rip it all up and start again and have a whole new constitution. It would be exciting. It could fix things like Missouri's the easiest state to have to get an issue to amend the Constitution on the ballot. So outside groups are always putting test issues like clean Missouri and stuff like that on our ballot because it's easy for outsiders to get our Constitution amended. We could fix that. We could make changes to the court plan, the nonpartisan court plan, which is really a non-Republican court plan, honestly. There's a whole bunch of things we could tackle, but it would be a big risk to vote. I think I could vote yes for fun because I'm a constitutional nerd, but I don't know if there's any organized effort to get people to vote yes on the Constitutional Convention in November.
I think I'm going to vote yes too. I guess I
want to be a delegate if it goes that way. How cool would that be?
It would be really cool. And if you go back, there's a great paper written for the Show Me Institute by former Mizzou professor Justin Dyer, and
head of the Kinder Institute. He was head of the Kinder Institute.
He was, and he wrote about all of the delegates and their backgrounds and kind of the breakdown from the last Constitutional Convention, and really fascinating stuff. You can Google it and find it, but I do imagine, and actually the transcripts of the Constitutional Convention are online, and you can actually hear the personalities coming through the transcripts, and you can tell who had a beef with who and who was kind of the big personality and who was more quiet. If you go through the transcripts, and I always do kind of envision a Hamilton-esque people kind of stunting and this very traditional constitutional debate. And so I would love to see it again. I think it would be totally crazy. And I haven't done the research, but I wonder, there was a state that did have a constitutional convention fairly recently, but that they wrote that into the Constitution when they adopted it in 1945, that every 20 years we would have to vote on, hey, do we just start over? And the other
and so far we haven't decided to do that, but we could this time. That would be exciting. There are state constitutional provisions that I've done research and read those transcripts for, like the prohibition against special legislation, because prior to our last Constitution, people were getting divorced by legislation. Mm-hmm. Because you would get people from outside your district to be like, okay, this prominent donor or whatever in my district wants a divorce. Okay, we pass a bill, they're divorced now. That's why there are abuses like that going on, where it's like, here, you do this for me, I'll do this for you, which led to us having that state constitutional prohibition against special legislation. We have prohibitions on, or requirements for clear for single subject, clear title, things like that for passing legislation. There are a number of things that our state constitution has that we don't have a federal constitutional equivalent for. And there are some that we do have, but ours are supposed to be stronger, like the right to bear arms.
Exactly. Well, and as we see what's happened at the Supreme Court level in the last several terms, and even this term, a lot of those big ticket issues are getting kicked back to the states, and the states are actually allowed to decide. And some states currently are debating, for example, what to do on abortion.
Yes.
And some of that is being, offered up, or they want to enshrine it in their state constitution. So
yeah, a right to abortion, which is the proper way to do it. Like, have the people, if you want to put that in the Constitution, that's what you do. You actually have a constitutional convention. The people have to, you go through the proper channels. You don't just find it in the Constitution when it didn't exist.
Exactly. And I think that's what, for me, there are some of these really big ticket items, but it really is kind of a restoration to federalism that we're seeing from the Supreme Court. And I think the state constitutions are becoming ever more important, which is why I'm even more excited that we're voting on a constitutional convention. The other thing that I don't understand is why we're not voting in like a 2020, and we're voting on the 2022, and then the next one will be in 2042. I guess I just feel like that's weird. I feel like we should have voted in like the big general election in 2020 or 2024. I don't know why it's like in this off year, but that's what it says in the Constitution, so that's what we have to do.
It is interesting. The other one, there's so many races too, and those November races will be huge. Obviously, we'll have the Senate race, the auditor race will be big, and you're right, there could be marijuana on the ballot. There could be a number of other issues. But there is, I think, an intriguing race as well. There's quite a few of them in the August primary, but I'm very interested to see what happens. And our listeners will know both these names, but Representative Nick Schroer is running against Speaker Pro Tem John Wieman for a state Senate seat in St. Charles County. They're both very conservative, very conservative Republicans, and they are, Schroer primarily has been throwing a lot of lobs at Wieman. Wieman's throwing some back at him. The district is overwhelmingly Republican. There's a Democrat named Michael Sinclair, but I'm very interested to see who wins that, because Schroer's argument all along has been that in that congressional map, he wanted to see a congressional district just for St. Charles County. That didn't happen, but I'm intrigued by that. But the August primary will be interesting, too. I thought we learned a lot with Brianna Lennon, too. That was a good interview. I'm glad you had her on.
We did. And with those Senate races, there are a lot of incumbents and other folks being challenged from the conservative caucus standpoint. And some of the races are a lot closer than I think folks had initially anticipated. And I think, we talk about the more localer, Brandon likes to say the more localer, the more importanter. And really, a lot of your day-to-day life isn't dictated by the federal government. It is dictated by your state legislators and your state Senate. And what we know is we had a huge hang-up, largely over personalities. This last year, it kind of started 2 years ago and didn't get any better, only got worse this year. And I think a lot of those races are going to really dictate how the Senate looks in January, and whether or not it's just a continuation of more of the same, or whether there's some resolution or change or movement. And so, really, if you're wanting to know, what's my life going to look like in the next couple of years, that those Senate races are really, really important.
There's no doubt. Even if and some people might think, well, the only thing that matters is it's a Republican or Democrat, but they don't always. If Nick Schroer gets in the Senate, we know he'll vote primarily with the conservative caucus. There's no doubt. John Wieman's a conservative too. Just they're a little different in terms of their style. And also the Travis Fitzwater race, that 10th district, Jeannie Riddle's term loaded out over in Mocaine. Callaway County's got that. It goes to Montgomery County. But you have 4 either current or former state lawmakers. And then this Mike Carter, people have probably seen his billboards up and down I-70. He's got a lot of money. He's putting some of his own money in there. So those are all races we'll pay attention to as well. Should be interesting.
I'm supporting Schroer and Travis Fitzwater for those 2 Senate seats.
Gotcha. Very good.
Jen weighing in. Now, Jen, you sent me another article going on to the federal side about this new Department of Education Title IX rule. What's up with that?
Oh, my gosh. So, the federal government has so much power. They're going to tie federal funded programs to their new gender policies, which includes the transgender stuff. And so it appears that this is going to start requiring universities to maybe have trans people in dorm rooms of the gender they identify with, not the gender they were born with.
Wow. Really?
Yeah. They're open for comment right now, but you know, I don't know where I fall on the. I don't have a strong opinion. I was thinking like my brother actually got assigned a gay roommate back in the day, you know, like whatever, 15 years ago, who actually got murdered, Jesse Valencia.
Oh.
But like, I think that's fine to get a gay roommate randomly assigned to you. But it would be strange maybe to get. Maybe I'm old, but I think it would be strange to get a trans person who's still physically a male assigned to you, and you're an 18-year-old girl going to college, and then you're living in a dorm room and changing in front of this person and everything else. Granted, this person identifies as female, but how comfortable would you feel with that if that were the case? And could you opt out?
Yeah, I would totally support everyone getting their own room in college. Probably not financially feasible, but man, I remember having to share and have suite mates and everything else. And yeah, I do think it raises a lot of questions similar to, you know, the questions that we're dealing with in high schools and with locker rooms and bathrooms and those kinds of issues. But it, like you said, it is open for public comment. So if folks, you know, want to read up more about the rule and then offer comments, there is a process by which you can do that now. But it's important to go ahead and get informed on these issues because, you know, the executive branch has gotten so powerful that, you know, a lot of these policies are being established either through executive order or through administrative rule. And even though we've had that EPA case, which had helped us out a little bit, shutting some of that down, I think they still can pass these rules. And a lot of, you know, even like some of the stuff that Schmidt's been fighting as our attorney general has been these rules coming down. And especially during COVID, we saw how much power bureaucrats have in Washington. And I think it's really important to keep an eye on this, not just on Congress, but on what the rulemaking process and the executive and the administrative, the fourth branch.
Yeah, and according to the Federalist Society commentary blog post on this, many are concerned that under the proposed regulations, harassment will be defined to include offensive speech such as non-preferred pronouns or unpopular opinions related to sex or gender in violation of the free speech clause of the First Amendment. So you could get, you know, basically prosecuted by Title IX offices if you like use someone's dead name or the wrong pronoun. And that is concerning because, you know, that can really damage a young person's career to have official universities, you know, disciplinary procedures against you.
Certainly. I mean, I think if you were wanting to be a lawyer and you had to fill out your character and fitness, you would have to disclose any sort of, you know, any sort of charges under Title IX. And I think,
you might not be able to be a member of the bar.
Exactly. And we've already seen, you know, some kids, I think it was like a middle school kid who was getting in trouble at his middle school for not using preferred pronouns. So keep an eye on that administrative state. They like to sneak stuff past. And right now there's a rule that you need to go out and read about and comment on before it gets away from us. Coming up, we will be doing our regular segment of leftovers. There's a number of things we didn't get fully into today, and we'll give you some highlights and some directions on where you can head to find out more information on those topics in just a few minutes. You're listening to 93.9 The Eagle. All right, Stephanie Bell in for Brandon Rathert here with Jennifer Bukowski. We're doing a little bit of leftovers on this Wednesday morning for you. A couple of things we didn't get to. Yesterday, apparently, the Senate has these interim committees, and oftentimes it will give you an indication of what might be coming up in the next session that's important to the legislators. And Senator Brown is heading the Illegal Immigration Committee, and apparently they had a meeting yesterday, meeting with some leaders, talking about what can be done here in Missouri about illegal immigration, and that committee will continue to meet.
Interesting. That's Amy Blunt's boyfriend.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Well, so Senator Brown led this committee. They had different various leaders, I think union folks too, just talking about illegal immigrant work, the workers who are here, and how they can be supported and not exploited, but also find ways to do legal immigration to support those folks who are looking for legal employees here in Missouri. So I do like the idea of bringing in business leaders who are affected by this issue here in Missouri for the committee. And so I'm always glad when the people on the ground, especially when the leaders are talking to actual business owners and we're not just hearing from talking heads or associations or lobbyists or politicos.
Right.
What else is on what didn't we get to that you're looking at?
Well, Gary always makes fun of me for this, but I've got an update on the royal family over in Britain. Prince Harry and Meghan Markle will not visit the Queen during Balmoral summer break, according to the UK Daily Mail. The audacity, Meghan Markle and idiot Prince Harry drive me crazy, but it's so insulting that the Queen invites you for her summer break. She doesn't have that many years left, Harry. You know, she's the Queen. She's important, and you are going to decline her invitation to go to Balmoral, where she goes for like a month or so every summer to visit her and spend time with your family because of your wife. That is just infuriating to me. Prince Harry should know how damaging and how stressful it would be to his brother and his family to do that Oprah interview, and because he's been in it and he's supposed to be a working royal and helping his brother Prince William with all these duties. Instead, he skips out, goes to California, badmouths the family, and now the Queen has extended an olive branch like, here, come visit us, spend time with us, be part of our family, even if you're not a working member of the royal family. And they're like, nah,
so
we're good.
You're
no,
fully,
we're not coming.
You're fully on Team Kate. I don't know. I mean, I feel like
I don't think it's like Kate.
That's a little bit traditionalist, though.
I'm the Queen team. It's an insult to Her Majesty the Queen. Your grandmother, she's not going to be around that many more years. You know, you already skipped out and missed your grandfather's last, time, and he really helped raise you, so he was like a father figure to them in some ways. Well, no, I guess Prince Charles has been their father, but I think he's been very involved with those two, raising his grandsons after Princess Di's death and because the divorce and everything else. So he wasn't around for his grandfather's last moments, and now he's just going to skip out on the Queen, too.
So Jen is fully Gen Z-ing and a royal watcher in this way. Hannah is the only one, I think, on Wake Up Columbia. Typically, that's our royal watcher, right? She likes the royals. It's a Gen Z thing. For whatever reason, Gen Z is obsessed with the royals.
Yeah, and I'm in my 20s, so.
It's like the Kardashians. You can't help sometimes but indulge.
I can help myself and not watch the Kardashians. Other local stuff that we got into really early this morning, if you weren't with us, there was a tour of the new terminal at Columbia. Brian has a video on his Twitter, Brian on the Air, if you want to get a sneak peek at the inside of the new terminal, and jet bridges. You won't have to walk outside if you are exiting or getting on the plane at Columbia, which is a very exciting update, at least from my perspective.
It'll be a little less exotic of a locale to land in, but it's good move.
Hopefully,
thanks for having me in. It's been fun, Stephanie.
It's always been fun. Go ahead and listen on Friday.